Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen. But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, up and down the country, our archaeologists dig down, searching for fresh discoveries.
Another one.
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
Yeah. So we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy. Wow. And unearthing priceless objects.
Might be a pendant.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw.
Gonna come and have a look.
That is the epic story of our islands. It's been an extraordinary year full of challenges, and yet I've been able to visit so many exciting digs up and down the country.
Oh my goodness.
There have been spine-tingling discoveries to witness.
That is the face of a Trojan.
Yes.
My heart is racing.
And I'm even getting a chance to use a trowel myself. I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
Well, I can actually see the texture of the weave, and it's, what, 1,600 years old?
It's amazing that a small DNA sample like this can tell that really quite big story.
As they dig deeper for answers.
Same technique as the Romans used.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best finds into the studio. You can see that this object has had a life of its own. For up-close analysis.
It's astonishing detail.
Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time we take a look at what archaeologists have been unearthing in the west of the UK. A previously undiscovered Roman town provides the ultimate treasure hunt.
I found a couple brooches, I found a ring, bracelet.
It is amazing, isn't it? A mysterious shrine surrounded by child burials puzzles the experts.
Almost looks as if they're trying to get these children as close to whatever the central feature is.
And archaeology solves the mystery of a World War II tragedy.
Right, this was found in one of the pits that was created by the aircraft as it fell.
The first location on my archaeological tour of the West is tucked away in the spectacular Mendip Hills, 16 miles south of Bristol. I love the Mendip Hills. I'm often to be found walking here at the weekend, and here I am right up on the top. North Somerset Levels over there, the Somerset Levels themselves to the south, Glastonbury and Glastonbury Tor are out there in the mist somewhere. We're just catching that wooded valley there, which is the very top of Cheddar Gorge, which is full of caves which are stuffed full of Paleolithic and Mesolithic archaeology. Cheddar itself, of course, home to the famous cheese. But it wasn't the cheese that attracted the Romans to Mendip. It was the minerals. The Romans arrived on Britain's eastern shores in 43 AD, and 6 years later they reached Somerset and the Mendip Hills. The Romans came here to mine galena, the ore that is smelted to produce lead. You'd expect this important industry to fuel thriving local economies and settlements in the surrounding area, but little evidence of that has been found until now. In a valley nearby, trenches are being dug for huge new electricity cables, and dozens of archaeologists have been scouring the ground after surveys revealed signs of human activity.
It's a copper coin, see?
It's one of 500 coins we've found so far.
Thankfully, they were armed with our Dig Diary cameras. As it turns out, there's treasure to be found.
We've got this dolphin brooch with possible enamelling inside.
Wow.
And we found a jet spindle whirl.
Half a copper stylus,
I came from Rome to find a Roman coin here in our Somerset.
What a brilliant way to start the week.
The archaeologists expected to find some evidence of farming communities, but what they found stunned everyone.
So we're just on the edge of the settlement here.
We're on the edge of the settlement here.
Yeah.
Still huge amount of activity.
Mike Glyde is lead archaeologist for the National Grid. It's his job to make sure the precious archaeology is excavated and recorded before the cables are laid.
This particular area was identified requiring excavation in advance of construction, and what we have found here has far surpassed anything any of us could have really predicted. We have over 1.5 metres of unbroken stratigraphy dating from the late Iron Age right through to late Saxon medieval period, and we've got totally unbroken settlement on site. So we're seeing the huge amount of social and economic development of a town in fine detail.
That's amazing. So basically what these works have given you is a cross-section through this town.
Absolutely, yeah.
And presumably you knew there was some Roman archaeology here?
Yeah, there's Roman remains in the immediate vicinity of here, but
Yeah.
we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy. You're expecting a little bit of Roman activity here.
Yeah.
Something fairly light.
Yes.
Something that would take you maybe a few weeks to dig.
Exactly.
And how long have you been here?
2 years.
For the Romans, building a network of roads to these outermost reaches of the empire was essential for moving goods and troops. And as they took road building so seriously, a lot can be learned from digging one up. Like this one, that clearly lay at the heart of this community.
Is that a road?
Yes, that is our third Roman road down.
Bob McIntosh is leading the Oxford Archaeology team.
So this is one of 4 of our Roman roads. All directly on top of each other. They're all 4th century. This is the nicest one.
When does this road date to?
Just past 300. So this is roughly Constantine. There's a big phase of infrastructure projects in Britain during his reign, rewarding his supporters for making him emperor, because he's crowned in Britain before conquering the rest of the Roman Empire. And it fits perfectly with our settlement going from just urban sprawl up the valley to big road being built through, demolishing people's houses, which you can see the foundations of sticking out through the road surface.
Constantine, famous for being the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity, was actually proclaimed emperor in York in 306 AD.
As you can see, his face really clearly, his long hair and the name Constantine around the edge.
His reign kick-started a new period of economic prosperity for Roman Britons, not least for those who lived in this vibrant settlement. I've come right to the top of the Mendip Hills to meet county archaeologist Kat Lodge, who's been looking at the wider impact of this newly discovered road and settlement.
It is fantastic being right up here on the top of the Mendip Hills and getting this appreciation of the geography.
Yeah, it's a very different landscape from what you would have seen in the Roman period, and would have been extensive salt marshes and rivers weaving in and out.
And we've got the lead mines over to the east of us here, and our new roadside settlement down there to the west.
Yep.
How's that changing your idea of the Roman landscape of Mendip?
These routes, they're almost completely new to us. So our roadside settlement is really giving us the possibility that there was trade off Mendip into the Bristol Channel.
In the Roman era, the nearest major trade route for the lead mines of the Mendip Hills was the epic Fossway, where it passed just to the southeast. But the discovery of the new roadside settlement suggests there was another trade route, taking lead straight from the mines to the coast, where it could be exported by ship across the Roman Empire.
And you think that is all linked to this economic activity, this industrial activity up here on the Mendip Hills?
I do. I mean, we've got evidence from the 1950s in the vicinity of metalworking, very close to our roadside settlement that's being excavated. It kind of all leads to that.
It's quite strange, isn't it? I mean, looking out over this landscape today, it's a largely agricultural landscape. And you go back into the Roman period, and it seems that there was more industry going on back then.
Yeah, in terms of the industry, I mean, we don't really see anything like that now. It's just the lumps and bumps and earthworks that remain today.
Yeah. And then it's new infrastructure that is opening up this opportunity to look at our heritage.
It really is. Without these developments and these infrastructure projects, we wouldn't be finding sites like this amazing roadside settlement and understanding so much more about the historic environment around us and our collective heritage.
Back at the spectacular settlement, the team have uncovered more of that heritage. There's evidence for major butchery, a bone workshop, and several wells, this one still almost intact.
At the moment, we've excavated the interior down to 50 centimetres, as you can see.
I just found this little bit of British Romano glass, and it's very nice. You can see the bubbles, and this is adding further evidence of the fact that this settlement was a domestic one.
The mix of light industry and domestic luxury suggests this was an affluent community with this major road as its main artery.
So this layer that you've got exposed now, this is the heyday of this Roman town then?
Yeah, this is the town at its peak. This is also the phase with by far the most imported finds from the continent.
So there's plenty of goods flowing in. Presumably they're exporting lead.
Yeah, the people living directly here are not lead miners. They're living too well for that. These are merchants or accountants or some secondary industry that is making money off of those lead mines, I would assume.
What a place to gain experience for these young archaeologists.
Hello.
Like 24-year-old Mariah.
Have you found anything exciting while you've been working here?
Actually, I found a coin from the Domitian period. I found a couple brooches, I found a ring, bracelet. It's been a very good site.
It is amazing, isn't it? I mean, to have this town in the middle of countryside.
Honestly, and this is my first, official site, because it's my first job since university.
Is it?
I'm living my best life, I will say. Yeah. It's been very good to me.
Oh, it sounds amazing. I'm going to go and look at some of the finds in a bit. Thank you very much.
Bob has gathered together just a handful of the hundreds of treasures so far unearthed, so I can have a closer look.
Some of your lovely finds.
Yeah, so 1st century, we've got very early silver coin. It is Emperor Domitian.
I can see that, yes. I can read that. It's beautiful.
So that's 90s AD. He's only emperor for a few years.
Yeah.
That gives a really nice specific date for that phase of the settlement.
So just as this Roman town is starting to take off, really?
And already shows a certain amount of wealth, because an average labourer would make one of those denarii a day.
OK. So have you got any other finds that are around that kind of early phase of the site, the 1st century?
Yeah, so the other one is my favourite one. 1st century, legionary, standard issue, turf cutter. Every Roman legionary would have one of those in his pack.
So why are they clearing turf?
You cut the turf away before you dig your ditches. You're clearing all the vegetation, so you have clear lines of sight from your defences.
Yeah.
That's late 1st century, so the soldier who carried that almost certainly was in the invasion of Britain and would have campaigned through this part of the country, and then has retired here and kept his turf cutter.
You could have used that to deturf this area.
Exactly, yeah, that's why I like this one. That is me 2,000 years ago.
And what about these beautiful brooches? When do they date from?
These ones are all 1st to 2nd century.
No, that's amazing. Look at that.
So that is particularly high status, enamel inlaid, with the enamel still intact, which I've not seen before. Normally you get the settings, but all the enamel is gone.
Yeah. Oh, that has to be one of the most beautiful brooches I've seen. Well, this hasn't even been properly conserved yet.
No, that is as it came out the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what a find. What about that? That's lovely.
Probably our best find so far. Knife handle for a little pocket knife, also from between two of our road surfaces, lodged between two cobbles. I'm sure someone was very sad to have lost this one.
That is lovely. It's a dog chasing a
It is a
rabbit
greyhound
or a
chasing a hare, yeah. And it is actually for a folding knife. The slot for the blade to slide into is still visible.
Yeah.
You would have been able to see the blade between all their legs, which is particularly stunning.
A little pocket knife that would have opened like that.
Common motif for the later empire, the
Yeah.
dog chasing a hare, but you don't normally find it in such a beautiful representation.
Whoever lost that must have been really gutted.
Furious, I would imagine.
That's a fantastic set of finds to tell the story of this Roman town.
Digging here will finish in just a few weeks' time, and what's left will be covered up once again. But archaeologists now have a treasure trove of new finds to sift through to help them understand more about Roman life in Somerset.
Across southern England and extending into the west, there's a huge band of chalk, making the perfect canvas for art on a monumental scale. From horses to warriors, these huge chalk figures decorate our hillsides. Now, we know that some of them are prehistoric, others are the whimsical creations of eccentric Georgian landowners. But it can be extraordinarily difficult to pinpoint the exact date when such a chalk figure was created. And one that's kept the archaeologists guessing for centuries is also the naughtiest of them all.
This enigmatic figure is carved into the great southern chalk bed near the small village of Cerne Abbas in Dorset. At 55 metres tall, the Cerne Abbas giant towers over the Dorset landscape, with his phallus alone proudly standing at 11 metres. He's shocked and delighted people for hundreds of years. But incredibly, despite centuries of speculation, nobody knows when he was carved. Mike Allen is one of the archaeologists determined to solve this mystery.
Everyone in British archaeology knows about him, but we haven't a clue about what date he is. And that's one thing that archaeologists are normally very good at, saying why they are there, what was happening, and what date they are. And in this case, we can't answer any of those questions.
Mike's joined forces with National Trust archaeologist Martin Papworth in a bid to find the answers. The Trust acquired this monument in 1920, and for the centenary, they too wanted to solve this puzzle.
It seems an ideal opportunity to date this enigma of the giant. Huge amounts have been written about him. Loads and loads of quite credible theories of all different periods of time have been put forward for him, and we just wanted to know.
One theory is that the Romans carved this figure to represent the demigod Hercules, famous for his strength and his legendary sexual prowess. He was often portrayed holding a club. But Mike thinks he could be much older, possibly similar in age to other chalk figures like the Uffington White Horse in Oxfordshire.
The Uffington White Horse is late Bronze Age, early Iron Age, and I think that he fits perfectly into that. So I put my money strongly into the fact that he's a prehistoric deity overlooking the landscape in which they farmed.
The earliest historical record is from 1694, when the nearby St Mary's Church lists repairs to Ye Giant costing 3 shillings. This first reference, not long after Oliver Cromwell was sworn in as Lord Protector in 1653, backs the legend that the landowner created this as a caricature to mock the man known as England's Hercules. Martin Papworth is putting his money on this later date.
There's no history, but it's such an obvious figure on the hillside, for goodness sake. He can't be much older than the 17th century.
In their search for answers, last year Martin and Mike were given special permission to start excavating. The figure is deeply carved into the hillside, so to date it, they must dig down through nearly a metre of accumulated deposits to get to the very earliest phase of its construction.
We actually have some soil and some materials to date it when he was constructed, and little minute snails that we find in this chalky soil will help tell us that answer.
Mike can loosely date the sediment using snail shells because some species only appear after specific points in history. These shells become date markers. And when the snails from the Cerne Abbas giant are analysed, they reveal an incredible result.
Two of the species in here, the helocelids, occur in Britain in the medieval period or later. And the fact they're here suggests that the basal deposits and all the deposits above must be medieval or later, which rather blows my idea out of the water that he's a prehistoric monument. He's clearly medieval or later.
Mike's theory of a Bronze Age date is out of the running, but Martin's 17th century caricature could still be correct. For a more precise date, our archaeological sleuths have brought in extra firepower. Philip Toms is Head of Environmental Sciences at the University of Gloucestershire. Using a type of luminescence dating, he can date the giant by finding out precisely when the sediment underneath it was last exposed to sunlight.
Within our samples, we're after sand-sized grains of quartz, and it's that quartz that contains our signal that will tell us how old our samples are. The disc that we're using is just enough to hold the grains that we need to measure, and there are about 100 grains on this disc. And for a typical measurement, we'd probably measure about 2,400 individual grains of sand. So our disc goes into this machine, it spins into position, we fire a green laser onto each grain of sand, and out comes the luminescent signal, and it takes about a week to measure.
Archaeological science is now going to enable us to paint the picture of the landscape and the society it belongs to, whereas before we were just guessing.
It's very exciting, whole new ideas about what he could be and what he symbolises.
A week later, and Phil's lab has the results that the Cerne Abbas archaeology team is waiting for. An accurate age for their giant.
We conducted the analysis and the dates have come out somewhere between 700 AD and 1100 AD. So given most people's views where it was either prehistoric or Cromwellian in age, for it to land in the medieval period was a bit of a surprise for everyone. That means we've got to return to the site and think about our interpretations of it again.
There is a hollow.
Martin and Mike have been stunned by these results. Now they know the Cerne Abbas giant was created in the medieval period.
Well, we're surprised, aren't we? This isn't what we expected at all. I mean, I was convinced he was post-medieval.
And I was convinced he was prehistoric, and I think, a bit of archaeological science has proven that neither of us were right, and we're both wrong.
It seems archaeologists and historians may have missed a big clue right under their noses.
Everyone seems to have been carried away with his nakedness and the member, and no one had actually really thought about the obvious, the abbey sitting behind us.
Below the giant once lay Cerne Abbey, founded in 987, right in the middle of the period when we now know the giant was created. But what connection could a huge naked figure have to a Benedictine monastery? Perhaps historians have focused on the wrong appendage.
Just right next to his outstretched hand is in fact the abbey, which was established at the same time.
The abbey's wealth was created largely by pilgrims venerating the local holy man, St. Eadwald of Cerne. Legend has it that Eadwald lived as a hermit on a nearby hill after he planted his wooden staff in the ground there, and it miraculously grew into a tree. Perhaps the club is really a staff sprouting leaves.
Is he St. Eadwald? What do I think? I don't know. I don't know who he is. But this medieval date makes all sorts of theories possible.
For our next dig, we travel back in time a little, to the first few centuries of the early medieval period. The location is in West Wales, on a beach right on the tip of Pembrokeshire. This is White Sands Bay, and out there is the Atlantic Ocean.
The sea looks so benign today, but this beach in West Wales gets absolutely battered by storms. And in 2014, a storm crashed in and exposed a small cemetery at the top of the beach, prompting an archaeological rescue operation, which is transforming our understanding of early medieval Christian communities here in Wales.
That storm and the danger of more to follow was a call to arms for archaeologists, and soon a rescue mission to lift and catalogue the contents of the cemetery was launched. In 2016, Digging for Britain joined the team from Dyfed Archaeological Trust and the University of Sheffield as they made the discovery that the cemetery contained a concentration of child burials, almost perfectly preserved in the sand.
So it seems to be a woman buried with a baby in the crook of her arms.
That's right.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's the baby's head, yeah.
Here's the mother's left arm.
It's rare to find this quantity of infants in a communal cemetery. Doesn't matter what date it's from. Here we've got a large number of them because the preservation in the sand has been so good for skeletal remains.
There had been a late medieval chapel on the site, but beneath its foundations were graves dating back as far as the 7th century. Infant mortality rates were high in this period, and the sand here has preserved evidence that enormous care went into burying these children.
So what we've got here is a really rather nice bone pin, possibly a shroud pin. And some of the burials that we've had here, you can see from the position of the skeleton, the feet particularly, that these people look like they were wrapped in shrouds when they were buried.
5 years on, and the dig team has returned for another season. I'm joining them to see if they found any new evidence to suggest why so many children were buried here. Ken Murphy is the site director.
Ken, when I last caught up with this site, you had a lot of infant burials at higher levels.
We did, and we've still had loads and loads of infant burials.
How many burials have you had in entirety coming in?
Entirety, about 250 together. That's over several years. But this year, we've had about 150 in this quite small area.
1, 2, 3.
In the days before I arrived, there was a fascinating discovery that may provide some answers.
Do you want to come and have a look?
As to why so many children were buried here.
You okay?
Yeah.
They were often placed in kists, little stone-lined graves. But this large kist appears to have had some special status.
It almost looks as if they're trying to get these children as close to whatever this central feature is.
Surrounded by those tiny skeletons and decorated with carefully laid quartz pebbles, it was a tense moment for the archaeologists excavating this mysterious feature.
We've come down from this level. It had a capping on the top. 2 burials have already been extracted. From here, you can see where that slate has been sort of dragged out, splayed out. So we're going to get all that cleared away before we investigate this any further. But at the moment, this is a bit of a mystery to us. We don't quite know what's going on there.
A few days later, and I'm keen to see what they learned about this intriguing structure.
So again, you've got this central box-like feature there. So what's this?
We thought it was going to be a special grave, but it doesn't seem to be. It seems to be more of a shrine. So people try to get their infants as close as possible to this to be buried.
One part of the feature has even been cut away to bury a child's body as close as possible.
So
it's smashed away here?
Smashed away, that's right. So it's quite an effort to go to. So this is a very special place where people wanted to bury their newborn children who obviously didn't survive.
Before there was even a chapel here, this was clearly a sacred place where people buried their children around this mysterious shrine. And it dates to a time in the 7th century when Christianity was beginning to take hold in Wales. And Ken's found more evidence.
So again, you've not had many finds coming out of this site, but then you do have spectacular ones like this. It's lovely.
That's right. We don't really get small finds as such, but we do get these. And this is a really good example of well, obviously a cross incised stone. It would have been originally standing upright as a grave marker, but it had been reused in our Kistor shrine as a side slab. As far as we're aware, that's the first time we actually got an interlaced cross actually in situ, as it were. Most of them are known as just loose in churches or in churchyards or whatever. Yeah. So actually to get one in situ is really quite special.
Yeah, I know the edges are really sharp.
They are.
I mean, you can practically see the lines where it's been carved away again and again.
Yeah.
And we're completely clear that this is Christians at work then.
Yes, well, yes, not much doubt.
Similar examples to this intriguing feature can be seen across the water in Ireland, where small rectangular cairns have also been found, built on the earliest Christian sites.
So do you think there were connections between this site and Ireland then?
Yeah, I mean, this actual site has got a very sort of Irish feel to it. This central structure we get in there, circular structure, is similar to some sites you get on the west coast of Ireland. From Dublin to here is probably a day's journey by sea. From here to, inland to eastern Wales is probably 3 or 4 days on foot or by horse.
And the Irish connection doesn't stop there. Records show a chapel was built on this site centuries later, and it was dedicated to Ireland's most famous saint, Patrick. In earlier centuries, religious sites and cemeteries were often separate. Burial grounds like these, with chapels later built on them, are precursors to the churchyards we're more familiar with. Although archaeologists approach their work objectively, it's always poignant to excavate tiny graves like these.
How's it going, Hayley? How many infants have you excavated here?
About 5. It was a bit of a wobble. I had a bit of an emotional moment. So.
Yeah. It's always poignant, I think, digging child burials.
Yeah.
Because, you think about the people that place that little body in the ground.
Exactly.
To find out more about the early medieval people who lived and died in West Wales, archaeologist Kat Jarman has travelled to Sheffield University, where skeletons from the dig are being analysed.
Laid out in this lab are some of the child skeletons from the White Sand dig. Katie Hema is a bioarchaeologist like me.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, Kat. Meaning she forensically analyses bones to find out more about the people they belong to.
They're such tiny bones, aren't they?
Yeah, this individual's about 2 to 3 years of age.
And these lower long bones here, I mean, this looks very, very curved to me.
They do. There's curvature in that one, and there's quite notable bending in this one as well. That evidence suggests that maybe this individual experienced vitamin D deficiency rickets, because you often get bowing of the long bones in rickets.
This microscopic image of an infant's tooth shows how Katie's forensic analysis found more evidence of widespread vitamin D deficiency.
You can notice there's sort of these lines of blotchy, sort of black patches, and that's basically dentine that hasn't formed properly because this individual was deficient in vitamin D.
And it's really interesting what this is actually telling us, because vitamin D, you get that from sunlight, don't you? So presumably this means this child was not getting enough sunlight. What can you say about why this is happening?
Perhaps they were poorly and they were being kept indoors, and therefore they weren't getting, that exposure that they really needed. And maybe that, in time, actually, led to them, unfortunately, dying.
Another skeleton backs the archaeologist's theory that some people travelled from far away to the White Sand site. Katie's studied the sulphur content in this young woman's bones.
Sulphur relates to the underlying geology of a region. You know, the sulphur goes up into the soil and the plants, and then the people eat those plants. And we actually found that their sulphur signature was very different from the rest of the people that we sampled. Everybody else looked like they were growing up on the coast, but this person actually had an inland sulphur signature.
Oh, so she's actually moved and ended up there later in her life?
I think so. I think that's what the sulphur is showing, because and this person's signature was more consistent with another population that I sampled from southeast Wales, much more inland, really different from those on the Pembrokeshire coast.
And that's quite interesting because it's a woman as well, isn't it? So it tells us something about mobility among women in this time and place that we didn't really know from other sources.
And I think it's also important to our understanding of the community. Not everyone that was buried at the site were local to that region as children. People were moving there, people were being buried there that weren't necessarily native to that area. So I think that's also really important to our understanding of who these people were, what this community was all about, and what was going on in early medieval Wales.
It's very rare to get that much information out of an early medieval Welsh community like that. So the fact that we're finding out about children especially, we don't get children preserved in cemeteries like this. So the stuff that we can now find out about disease, about illness, just how people lived in those communities, it's just adding so much to the picture of the past that we just didn't have before.
Come and search for we who search, and looking for us scour the land.
Next, a return visit to a place we recently featured when exploring the south of England. It's a vast, special area of conservation that straddles both Hampshire and Wiltshire, Salisbury Plain. The plain consists of around 300 square miles of mostly chalky downland, about half of it used by the military. But its rich past means the sound of busy archaeologists can often be heard above the distant explosions.
I'm visiting a fantastic project where archaeology is being used as therapy, but they're digging this particular site because it's under threat. It's threatened by unscrupulous people wishing to make financial gain out of plundering, looting our rich archaeological heritage, a heritage that belongs to all of us.
It all started when this pocket of land was surveyed for potential use for construction.
Richard.
Hello.
I thought I'd find you in a trench somewhere on Salisbury
Somewhere
Plain.
on Salisbury Plain, yeah. Well, you've chosen a good one.
MOD archaeologist Richard Osgood commissioned a geophysical survey of the site that, to everyone's surprise, revealed signs of an early medieval cemetery, right where the building was planned.
But usually, I mean, after the evaluation, wouldn't you have just left it there and said, well, no, we know there's archaeology there. If we want to develop around here, we can do that elsewhere. What prompted the excavation here?
The problem for us is that when we had the report given to us, we were told as part of that, we're really sorry, but word has got out about this particular site and it's vulnerable. And the reason it's vulnerable is because there are going to be metallic objects in these graves, and sadly, it's at risk for these group called night hawkers, who are, you know, non-scrupulous metal detectors, frankly. Metal detectors can be great on site, but there's a group that just don't play nicely, frankly. And
I mean, if you've got people coming in with metal detectors and just digging down to individual metal objects in the ground, they're disturbing these burials, and then you lose any context, don't you?
I don't know. It makes you weep, really. It's a real shame.
Joining Richard on this archaeological rescue mission are volunteers from Operation Nightingale. This MOD project helps ex-servicemen and women rehabilitate after serving on the battlefield. One of them is Falklands War veteran Sean.
Sean, looks like you've nearly finished.
Oh yeah, we're on the final phase of extraction of this skeleton.
And the most delicate part there.
Just a case of very, very carefully going around the edge and then very, very carefully loosening it and then taking a gulp and putting it in the bucket.
Yeah. And Sean, do you think it's the archaeology that's helped you, or is it being together with people?
It's a bit of both, but as you're digging away, you zone out. And it does stop you thinking about the bad things, but I find it just gives me the peace to think, right, this is what I've got to do next week. This is where I'm going now with the rest of my life. I'm just waiting on news now, and I might have a place at Bradford University doing a mature archaeology undergraduate course.
Really?
Yeah, 65.
What's starting this year?
At 65.
That's amazing.
There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Now look, we've been chatting. I've been stopping
I
you
better
from
get on.
lifting that skull.
And it's drying out. Right, you ready? Ready. 2-6. Go on, darling. Right.
Based on the team's latest findings, this mysterious cemetery has been dated to around the 7th century AD.
So good early medieval date to it, and that's from the artefacts that we're finding now in these burials. We did have a bit of excitement, thought we might have some early Bronze Age because there was some nice prehistoric material. There's a flint barbed and tanged arrowhead. It looked really nice. And then that central thing.
This circle, that looks kind of prehistoric to me.
Yeah, it does. But no, that's 7th century as well. And there was nothing with it, disappointingly, because I dug it. But for that person, the mound was their testimony, because you'd have seen it from quite a distance away, I think.
So that's the kind of founder burial, and then all these other burials are placed in later?
That's right. I think the cemetery's built up over, you know, a period of 20, 30 years, maybe. It may not be a long period of time.
This impressive grave may have been that of a local leader. It's thought to have been covered in a mound of bright white chalk, which would have been visible for miles around.
So we're right next to the burial with the amethyst bead.
Again, nice size.
The surrounding graves are much more modest, but in contrast do contain a range of fascinating 7th century grave goods.
Oh, wow.
We've just found another silver coil and this little coin.
There are bronze and silver rings.
Another ring just here.
That's all starting to come out.
Even a fragile but recognisable bone comb. Amongst these personal objects, they discover small knives and flint arrowheads, as well as some larger weapons.
So what's it made of?
Iron.
We learn something about who these people were from the artefacts buried with them, objects they may have used or worn in daily life, or which may have been placed in the ground by mourners. But there are also clues in the bones themselves, with experts on hand to help decipher them.
Because that's what, if you remember me saying about the greater sciatic notch.
So there's no difference male or female?
No, this means nothing at all.
Sharing her wealth of knowledge is Jackie McKinley, osteoarchaeologist with Wessex Archaeology.
It's just brilliant having someone with your level of expertise on site, because you can bring that biography to the skeletons. It's not just a skeleton. It tells you so much about who that person was in life.
Exactly. I mean, this one here, for instance, there's two individuals in here. But for me, the formation process that's interesting is, one, the soil is really, really loose.
Yeah.
It suggests there might have been something over the top of here. Maybe a wooden board or something like that, and stuff slowly dropped in over time.
So it'd be really interesting to know if they were related to each other.
Yeah, and if we do DNA analysis and they are related, we will be able to see whether it's a first generation, second generation, you know, how much of a gap there is.
There's layers and layers of information
there. There is. One of the things in archaeology that is so intimate are the human remains themselves.
The volunteers here are finding new purpose through their work and protecting the valuable history of these early medieval plain dwellers from destruction by reckless modern treasure hunters. And by the end of the dig, they've uncovered 21 graves. Now, Richard has brought some of the most exciting finds from these graves to the Digging for Britain tent for a thorough inspection.
Richard, that was such a wonderful dig, and you could see the way that the veterans were really benefiting from the whole process of archaeology?
It's counterintuitive, isn't it, in some ways, that you take traumatised individuals to a site with a load of burials. But I think if you're finding really lovely items and you're concentrating so hard in excavating them, it does work.
And in terms of finds, then, these are some of the grave goods that you discovered?
Yeah, we found quite a few. I think probably about a third of the graves had items in them, some of them in better condition than others. But nonetheless, I think they tell you a really interesting story about the 7th century at this particular part of Salisbury Plain.
So we've got an iron knife and an iron spearhead here?
Yep, that's right. And so those were buried with an adult male on the edge of the area. So maybe that's the earliest burial that we've got on the site.
Yeah.
And you move into the 7th century and we get a lot of jewellery, and it tends to be with the female burials.
And these are beautiful beads.
I know.
Is that amethyst?
It is. It's exquisite, isn't it? I mean, we've had quite a few of these from a necklace. The crafting that goes into something like that is incredible. And these have come from a distance. Now, these have been traded over quite a large area. You get these over on the eastern Mediterranean. I mean, maybe even as far as India. This is ideas and goods moving over big distances at this point in time.
Some of them are tiny. Look at that. Beautiful little blue bead. Is that glass?
It is. I think that's my favourite. The craft in that to make it this little flower shape is just delightful, isn't it?
And the colour. I mean, it's just beautiful. So, summing up then, Richard, will you be doing further analysis on the bones and teeth?
Yeah, that's right. That's the next stage, is that all the 22 individuals that came from this site will be assessed and to have a look and see whether there are people that have moved big distances or whether these are just Wiltshire folk that love the fashions of the classical empire.
Coins to the eyes and keys for the door, fortress, great goods, chamber, tomb, abandoned villages, rumors of war. We dig for pattern, breathe the room.
I think sometimes history as a subject can seem quite abstract, even esoteric. And what I love about archaeology is that it's a different way of looking at the past. It's all about the physical remains, it's tangible. And it can be such a great way of engaging young people with history, especially, as we see in our next story, when that history is actually so recent.
Our final dig takes place across the Irish Sea in Northern Ireland, near a village called Ballykelly in County Londonderry. In the grounds of a rectory, a team of forensic archaeologists and local students are searching for the location of a top-secret aircraft crash that's been a mystery for many decades. Immediately after the plane crashed in 1942, much of the debris was quickly cleared to prevent the highly classified equipment on board falling into enemy hands. Dig leader Johnny McNee has spent 18 months painstakingly searching for anything that remains.
What we're seeing at the minute coming out is just decomposed aluminium, and that's a good indication at this size that we're on the right spot, that this is aircraft related. So it's a promising first sign.
During World War II, aircraft flying from nearby RAF Ballykelly were helping to protect vulnerable convoys of ships, bringing desperately needed supplies from North America. At the height of the Battle of the Atlantic in 1942, so many ships, materials and men were being lost to the lethal German U-boats that the war itself was in the balance. Allied airmen were pushing themselves and their aircraft up to, and sometimes beyond, their limits.
Keep on going, Stephen, please.
The remaining debris that Johnny and his team are searching for is the result of one aircrew risking all on a secret mission.
Today we're looking for tangible traces of the aircraft that we can lift and retrieve and preserve and put on display, but also we're looking for evidence that will try to confirm to us that our scenario of how the aircraft crashed is actually here. So the primary one is to say this is the site of Beaufort AW271, this is where it crashed.
These Bristol Beauforts were torpedo bombers based at Ballykelly Airfield, testing cutting-edge radar technology, enabling them to detect and home in on surfaced submarines. But it wasn't just the radar that was experimental. Records show that this crew of Beaufort AW271 were also ordered to undertake a pioneering experiment to test if an injured airman could be safely parachuted from a plane by pushing a dummy with a chute out of a hatch. The exercise went catastrophically wrong.
The aircraft has come over the top of the rectory, with the parachute unfortunately deployed outside and wrapped around the tailplane. It's just come over the trees and has just belly flopped down onto the ground here and exploded, killing the 3 crew.
Flight Lieutenants Richard Holdsworth and Duncan Livingston, both aged 22, and 31-year-old Flight Sergeant Stanley Chadwick, all died.
It's been very emotional because we're having to deal with the tragic deaths of 2 dads and an uncle. So it's not like any other dig where we turn up and we know the airmen or the air crew have bailed out safely and all we're going to be finding is parts.
Johnny was asked to find the crash site by relatives of the crew. Thankfully, there have been no discoveries of human remains. But evidence of a shattered airframe is beginning to reveal itself.
I'm just wondering, could this be a propeller blade? But again, we'll need to clean, go back to our records, get an idea of what measurement. But there's a nice curved edge here. That's what this could be. As the engines were being revved up and slowed down to try to get the aircraft just to stay in the air to make a controlled landing, this thing has hit the ground with these spinning, and this is just sheared off. So there's a definite smooth edge and a thinner edge here. So we'll get that away out of the sunlight and get that bagged up and tagged.
It's now beyond doubt that this is the crash site that's lain forgotten for almost 80 years. Working with Johnny today is daughter Grace, who's joined by some of her fellow college students.
It's very eroded, but it seems cylindrical.
Yeah, it's a very, as you say, very...
You can see the metal coming through here as well.
Right. That's, a substantial bit. It could be part of engine or something like that, but well done, well spotted. Keep going.
The students are just a few years younger than the 2 flight lieutenants who died here.
That's what that is. But this stuff here that you've just found, this is really exciting. That's perspex from our Beaufort showing clear evidence of the fire that follows. So, no, great, is that? Well done. Get it into your bag and just write, with one of the Sharpies where you found it.
The young team were asked by the airmen's relatives to help reclaim any remaining wreckage.
Definitely our responsibility, because they're the ones trusting us to be looking through where their family actually passed away. I don't know, it feels like it's sort of an emotional responsibility more than anything.
So keep your eyes in for anything like this, and we can get the dates. And also to see if you can find any of the tips, the little pointy ends that were the business end of the bullet. Keep a wee look. Yeah, that's you can see there, that's nice and clean.
We've been talking to Richard Holdsworth's daughter, and she's just been telling me that Richard wanted to learn how to fly since he was a young boy, and it's just so sad that what he loved so much was his downfall in the end.
There is one last heavyweight find for Johnny to remove.
It's concentric layers of lead on a central column. Probably something to do with keeping the weight in the tailplane down, but we'll go and check our schematic drawings and we'll check to see what it is, but nothing that's going to need us to check our insurance very quickly. So I'm just going to...
The site can be covered over once again as the team have found the last remnants of the plane and have hopefully brought some long-awaited closure for the families.
This has definitely been about the human story for the crew and their memory, for the relatives of the crew, but the most important thing, I think, for me and the level of trust that was put on the team today from the family members was Was there a thorough clean-up of the site in 1942? Were their loved ones' remains taken away? And we can say a most definite yes to that.
So thank you for the sacrifice of your forebears and my...
4 months later, Johnny's team returns to the crash site, joined by the crew's relatives and the RAF, to honour and commemorate the 3 brave young men's sacrifice. Ballykelly was an emotional, intriguing dig. Johnny and his daughter Grace joined me with those shattered remnants of Bristol Beaufort AW271 to see what else they can tell us about this crash.
This was a crash that you knew quite a lot about from the documentary evidence. You knew how it happened with the parachute wrapping around the tail. Did you find any evidence of that actual process of the crash itself?
We think we might have got one wee bit. The crew were asked to simulate pushing an injured airman out of this little window here. But as they pushed the dummy and the parachute, and we have an eyewitness account of this, they saw the parachute blossom and wrap itself around the tailplane. So 1 minute the aircraft is flying along, and the next minute this parachute has wrapped around the tail and just completely retards the speed. And poignantly, we found the piece of burnt parachute cord.
So that could have been the remaining piece of evidence of the actual cause of the crash, then?
Yes.
Yeah. Grace, you were there with your dad at the Ballykelly site doing this excavation. Have you done many excavations like this before?
I have been doing them since 2010, so lots of them, despite the early starts in the morning and the wet Northern Ireland weather, I have actually really enjoyed it.
So he's not dragging you along?
Not really.
No, you're going willingly. You're enjoying it?
Yes.
And some of your friends joined you as well?
Yes, there was 6 of us, like, originally, and then it moved up to 8.
And did you find any of these finds here?
Yes, so once the digger had taken back the first layer of soil, the students went in and did a grid search of the area, and we found bullets that have exploded.
These
like,
ones?
within the fire, yeah.
Yeah. So they haven't been shot, they've just exploded because of the heat?
Just exploded in the intense fire, yeah.
Yeah. And then what's that?
That's an instrument dial, and that's just the face. Again, it's been blackened by the heat and the fire, but it was just one of the only sort of small recognisable parts that we recovered.
And it really was very fragmentary evidence, wasn't it? Because, you know, this is a site which has been cleaned up.
Yes.
And this escapes recovery. This is part of the propeller, is it?
Yes.
What's it made of?
That's, you know, pure aluminium, and it just shows you the ravages of the fire.
Yeah.
This was found in one of the pits that was created by the aircraft as it fell to the ground.
And here we've got photographs of those 3 young men who died in this tragic accident. And actually, you're much closer in age to these young men than I am. How did it feel to be excavating at this site?
It really put into perspective, like, what they were put through at, like, such a young age as well, and helped, like, put in more emotion to the dig as well.
I mean, this is something that you would normally be reading about in history books at school. Does it feel more real to you, having done this?
It definitely means a lot more, like, being hands-on with the projects rather than just learning about it, because it, like, brings more of a fun aspect into it, being able to see it in real life.
Are you looking for new recruits, Johnny?
We are. We have about 15 or 16, I am told, that want to fill the shoes, and we're going to go out and look for another aircraft, and hopefully we'll offer them the opportunity.
I really did enjoy it.
Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen.
But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, up and down the country, our archaeologists dig down, searching for fresh discoveries.
Another one.
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
So we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy.
Wow. And unearthing priceless objects.
Might be a pendant.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw.
Gotta come and have a look.
That is the epic story of our islands.
It's been an extraordinary year full of challenges, and yet I've been able to visit so many exciting digs up and down the country. Oh my goodness.
There have been spine-tingling discoveries to witness.
That is the face of a Trojan.
Yes.
My heart is racing.
And I'm even getting a chance to use a trowel myself. I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
I can actually see the texture of the weave, and it's, what, 1,600 years old?
It's amazing that a small DNA sample like this can tell that really quite big story.
As they dig deeper for answers.
Same technique as the Romans used.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best finds into the studio.
Whisk that away. You can see that this object has had a life of its own.
For up-close analysis.
It's astonishing detail. Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time, we're in the Midlands for the latest archaeological discoveries.
In a Digging for Britain exclusive, we uncover a truly spectacular ancient sea monster.
This could be one of the biggest finds ever in the UK.
An exquisite key handle reveals the bloodthirst of the Romans.
The children are next on the list after the lion has dispatched this barbarian.
So quite a gruesome subject, actually.
Absolutely.
And an early medieval graveyard shines light on the Dark Ages.
This is an indication of how we've got British history wrong.
From Goodrich Castle to Lincoln Cathedral, the Midlands is strewn with landmarks that tell of its long history. But many parts of this region's story remain hidden beneath the soil. Our first dig is just 3 miles from the centre of one of the Midlands' oldest cities, Leicester.
This hill near Leicester is part of a beautiful country park, much beloved of dog walkers. And the bank I've just walked up was once thought to be part of an Iron Age hill fort. It was thought to be, not anymore.
Here in Castle Hill Park, for the very first time, archaeologists are investigating what looks like a settlement surrounded by a huge bank and ditch. They want to find out how old this monument really is and who might have lived here.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Alice. Welcome to Castle Hill.
Well, you've got stuck in already.
Indeed.
Matthew Morris from Leicester University is leading the 3rd year of this excavation.
So you're the first archaeologist to actually
very
look on
first
this hill.
archaeologist ever to look on this hill.
And you've been here for a few years. What have you been discovering about it?
This site is rather enigmatic because it's, for 60-odd years it was a sewage farm between the 1890s and the 1960s, and so no one's ever looked at this site before.
The whole hillside was covered
Yeah,
in
we've got this
sewage
fantastic photograph of it from the 1960s, and you can see the earthwork really clearly outlined.
Yes.
And you can sort of understand why people pre-sewage farm thought it might have been an Iron Age hill fort.
Well, they're quite substantial earthworks,
Really
aren't they?
substantial earthworks, but then you can see all of these channels cut across it, which are all the sewage channels. And reputedly, it was not a great place to walk around or explore.
I can see why archaeologists weren't that keen to come and excavate it previously.
Absolutely.
But the sewage has long since gone, and now you can safely dig here and get to the bottom of what this Castle Hill is really about.
Absolutely.
To find out what was built here, Matthew is looking first at the bank and ditch surrounding the site. This image, created using a laser scanning technique known as LiDAR, reveals the shape of the enclosure ditch, hidden in the landscape. And now a trench has been dug, creating a cross-section to search for clues as to when it was built.
So this is the northern bank and ditch of the main enclosure.
Oh, so that ditch, when you get down into it, is really deep.
It's really deep and pretty wide as well. So this is a excessively large monument. You can see why people thought this was a hill fort.
So you're convinced now that this isn't prehistoric?
Absolutely, yeah. We're 100% convinced that this is an Iron Age
So what evidence have you got to prove that to me, Matt?
From the bank itself, we've got Roman pottery.
Ah, OK.
So this is a bit of Roman greyware.
So Romans come after Iron Age, so Iron Age people can't be creating a bank here with Roman pottery in it.
No, but even better, from the soil layer beneath the bank, we've had these 3 very grotty little bits of medieval pottery.
They're very grotty.
They're very grotty, yeah. Very characteristic of what you'd find in medieval plough soil.
So if there's medieval pottery underneath this bank, there's no way it could have got there.
In the Iron Age.
In the Iron Age.
Yeah, it has to have been dug in the medieval period and built in the medieval period.
Brilliant. So then there's another mystery. Who is here? Why are they converting this hilltop into what looks like a defensive bank and ditch? Why would you want to defend this hilltop?
So we've got a late 13th century document that tells us that in around about 1240, the 6th Earl of Leicester, Simon de Montfort, gives this area to the Knights Hospitaller.
Ah, so now we've got a link with the Crusades then.
And
so the
warrior
Knights Hospitaller were
monks,
here.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Knights Hospitaller were established in Jerusalem around 1100, after the city was captured by Christians during the First Crusade. The Crusades to the Holy Land were a series of religious wars between Christians and the Islamic Caliphate. The mission of these knights was to protect and support a hospital in Jerusalem which cared for Christian pilgrims. As conflict with the Islamic Empire intensified, the knights became more militaristic, defending Christian interest in the Holy Land. But what possible connection has this got to a hilltop in Leicester? As the dig progresses, the team uncover more clues that could link this site with these famous knights.
We came across a number of bones just lying on the surface. We've got a mixture of different animals, cattle, sheep, some perhaps dog.
We've had this come out of it, which is a tiny little medieval silver penny. It's been deliberately cut in half to make it a half penny, and that would probably put it in around about the late 12th century or up to the mid 13th century in date.
The archaeology is revealing a site that is far grander than a peasant farm.
So this is the key trench in understanding what is actually going on up here. So the pile of stones we're walking on now, this sort of flat pebbled surface, is actually the yard surface surrounding a building. It's huge, it's 8 metres wide, it's at least 15 metres in length, if not longer than that as well. Possibly has other buildings stretching off to it from the west in that direction.
Yeah.
So it's part of a complex.
And is this a building that people would have lived in?
It does have the sense that it is a fortified manor house, perhaps, or certainly a defended enclosure. It might be the manor house itself, the main house.
But why are they here? Why are they here on a hilltop in Leicestershire?
This is a manor site, effectively a large farm generating income for them that will support their military and charitable activities back in the Holy Land.
So the Knights Hospitaller are farming here. That doesn't explain why they've had to create these defences around the hilltop, though.
The location might be the clue. So the top of this hill here is Leicester Forest, and then going north from us is Charnwood Forest, and then beyond that is Sherwood Forest. And so we're in that fringe of very heavily wooded Midlands that is sort of well known for its bandits and outlaws.
So the Knights Hospitaller are farming here, surrounded by bandit country, and they essentially have to create almost a castle on top of this hill.
Yeah, which of course the name is a bit of a clue in that respect, Castle Hill.
This is the age of wild woods and outlaws, which inspired local legends like Robin Hood. And this profitable manor house didn't hide its wealth.
And it's a well-off farm, isn't it?
It is. When you look at the building material, again, it's using the local granite. We've talked about the slate roof, and the top of the roof would have been capped with glazed ridge tiles that would have had all of these lovely little decorative crests on them.
That's really lovely. So you've got this lovely slate roof topped with
glazed ridge tiles with
green
these
tiles.
Little decorative finials along the top of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's really quite ornate. It's
Very ornate, bright green glazed on top of a blue roof.
So, you know, we're not just looking at a series of barns or hovels up here, are we? This is something quite posh, actually. That's lovely. That's really nice.
The evidence suggests the buildings would have looked like this, an imposing manor commanding the hilltop over this wild medieval landscape. Some of the artefacts found reveal fascinating details about life here at the height of the Knights' occupation. Matt has put together a selection so that I can get a closer look.
What about this lump of something? What's that?
So this is iron hearth slag. So this is one we've sawn in half so you can see the cross section. So this is all the waste that sort of settled to the base of the hearth, the smith's fire.
Yeah. Is this something you would expect to find on a manor and a farm?
It's a working estate centre, so you're going to need every sort of function of that. And when you can't pop over to the shops, you're going to need a blacksmith on site to do all those needed repairs you've got on any metalwork. You've got wheels, horseshoes, maybe even make tools like this knife blade that's come
it's
up.
lovely. So finding evidence of smithing on site doesn't destroy your idea that this is a manor and a farm?
Oh no, absolutely. It's one of those many activities that you would expect to find on a working medieval estate centre.
Yeah. And then what about this pottery? You've got more of this green glaze here.
So these are the things that would be on the table during dining.
Yeah. And
But
is it high status?
It is. It elevates it above just a simple peasant's farm. This is the sort of stuff you'd expect on a much more elevated site, like a Knights Hospitaller site.
Yeah.
So they would give hospitality. Anyone staying, travelling through could stop and spend the night here.
Yeah.
So they do really live up to that element of their name, even though they are a military order.
The archaeology here paints a picture of the knights successfully managing and defending their farm, which would generate income to support their campaigns in the Holy Land. Matt believes he's also found clues as to what eventually happened to the manor farm here at Castle Hill.
And then what about the roof of it?
So the roof, we can see all these big piles of blue slates, the remains of the roof. They're all smashed roof slates that have been left piled up on the site because they're all broken and have been discarded.
So are we looking at a building that was demolished then?
Yes, definitely demolished. There doesn't seem to be any evidence of a long period of neglect with the building crumbling away.
Now that Matt and his team are sure that they have found this incredible historic building, he can refer to local records to find out why it was demolished.
We know they're here from 1240 to 1483, at which point they do a land swap with Edward IV for a site in Lincolnshire, and after that, effectively, it goes back to farmland again.
So it's a really short-lived site.
Absolutely, it's really only active for a couple of hundred years, and the pottery really supports that. There's no 11th, 12th century pottery, there's no 15th, 16th, 17th century pottery coming out, it's just 13th, 14th century, which is the period that they hold it.
I love this mystery that you've got to the bottom of, thinking, is it an Iron Age hill fort to begin with? It looks like it might be, with this impressive bank and ditch running around it. And then actually finding a much more interesting story, I think, underlying that.
It's not an excavation where we've left with a massive question mark at the end of it. We've actually got a good idea now of what's going on the site.
And a really rare glimpse of the Knights Hospitaller.
Really rare. There's not many of these sites that have ever been excavated in England. Knights Hospitaller or Knights Templar for that matter. So this excavation is actually hopefully going to redress that.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, what a mystery to have solved.
Oh, absolutely. It's been great fun doing this.
This site is just extraordinary, and I am fairly sure that if it hadn't been for the sewage farm here, that this archaeology would just not have survived. It would have disappeared long ago under development, under a housing estate. But here we are, peeling back this layer of soil, and we can see this incredibly detailed picture of the Knights Hospitaller up here on Castle Hill. It takes us away from the stereotype, I think, of those fighting monks. Yes, they were raising funds to go on crusades to the Holy Land, but they're also here, they're part of the medieval English landscape.
Dogs that leave no homes for the ship to sail in the sunken sea, the vessel aloft in the sky of stones, the famine rolled.
The Midlands boast some truly awe-inspiring landscapes. from the dramatic Peak District to the north and the magnificent Malvern Hills to the west. Spectacular geology that formed up to 700 million years ago. Humans are relative newcomers to the region, but that doesn't mean there's no evidence of life before us. Now, Digging for Britain is all about archaeology, but in this series we are making an exception for some paleontology for an exceptionally beautiful fossil. Our next dig takes us to a nature reserve 20 miles west of Leicester, Rutland Water. This is the biggest artificial lake in the country. The reservoir holds over 124 billion litres, providing water to the whole of the East Midlands. But in the winter of 2020, staff here discovered tantalising clues of something spectacular lurking in its depths. They called in paleontologist Dean Lomax from the University of Manchester.
This is a nature reserve and there's lots of animals that live here, but during the wintering months they lower the water levels, and in doing so they've exposed lots of the Jurassic clays which are stood on here, which you can see behind me. And by doing that, two of the members of staff were walking across the site and they spotted something poking out of the clay. Walked over to it and they found these vertebrae exposed and bits of what looked like pieces of jaw.
Oh nice, it looks like a bit of the snout, yeah. Well, it connects up here though.
Oh, it's such a cool discovery, it really is.
The staff at Rutland Water had stumbled on some extraordinary fossilised bones.
We've marked out, using these wooden sticks, where there's more bone underneath. And for the animal, for the size of this animal, you can work out from the size of the vertebrae and the size of these jaw portions that are exposed. We think the skull might be 1.5 metres, 2 metres, possibly even more. But this is really, really impressive.
Dean and his team are almost certain that this is the fossilised skeleton of an ichthyosaur, an ancient marine reptile that first appeared around 250 million years ago, long before dinosaurs such as Tyrannosaurus rex. Like whales, ichthyosaurs were air-breathing and warm-blooded, giving birth to live young. They could grow huge, almost as big as a blue whale, but they certainly never swam in Rutland Water, which was built in the 1970s.
Usually, you think of ichthyosaurs and other marine reptiles being discovered along the Jurassic coast in Dorset or the Yorkshire coast as well, and where many of those animals are exposed through the constant erosion of the cliffs and the foreshore, whereas here, at an inland location, is very unusual. We're inland, yet these animals lived in a marine setting. They were ocean-dwelling animals.
200 million years ago, the Midlands were part of the seabed under a huge, shallow ocean. The continent was lifting and the sea itself would eventually dry up. Dead marine animals which had lain on the seabed and become entombed in silt would slowly transform into fossils.
It's quite a big animal, and that's one of the really interesting things. Potentially, this could be one of the biggest ichthyosaur finds ever in the UK, as a skeleton as well.
Unlike fossils encased in hard rock, this soft mudstone will allow for quick excavation.
What do you want to take it to, the blue post? Because
the furthest bit of the skull.
And an early chance for the team to measure it.
Okay, you take it along the...
Okay, let me get in closer. Place your bets.
9.5.
9.5. Yeah, I mean here it's a case we just continue across.
Yeah.
The largest complete ichthyosaur ever found in Britain was discovered in 1857 on the Yorkshire coast and measured approximately 8 metres in length. But this specimen could be far larger.
Yeah, that's 32.4 feet. Yeah. So metres wise, 9.8, almost 10 metres. So the one in York, I'd have to triple check it. I think this one's bigger.
At nearly 10 metres, this ichthyosaur could be a UK record breaker and therefore of national significance. But it's midwinter, and as this small window of fine weather is set to close, time is running out to rescue it from the mud.
Ideally, the plan today would have been to remove all the material that's exposed. However, we can't run glues in here and we can't remove all of this material carefully enough that we know it's going to be safe. It's definitely not the ideal conditions to collect this right now, so we have to come back later in the year, and that's all part of the fun and games.
As it will soon be fully submerged, the team decide to protect the fossil and return in the summer to complete their mission, to excavate Britain's largest ichthyosaur and preserve it for the nation. We'll join Dean and his team later in the programme to see if they can successfully raise this monster from the deep. The Midlands has always had a strong identity. From the birthplace of manufacturing at the start of the Industrial Revolution, to the ancient Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Mercia 1,000 years earlier. But it's here that history starts to get murky.
There is no period in English history that's more hotly contested than that period of time when the Roman army has left, the 5th, 6th centuries, the so-called Dark Ages, when later historians tell us that boatloads of Germanic tribes were arriving in the east of England. Now, archaeologists have called that history into question, but it will be a long time before we know more about who those people really were. But archaeology can shed light on the richness and complexity of their culture, as we see in this next dig.
We travel to the city with the second oldest university in the country, Cambridge. From its founding in 1209, the history of Cambridge University, the city and its people are well documented, but go back another 7 centuries and much less is known about the people who lived here. Because we have so little written evidence from the time, Britain after Roman rule is largely a historical void. But in the summer of 2020, workers on a building site for King's College started finding skeletons that might help change that view. They called in the archaeologists.
Is that a good one, Archie? Is it big?
Who filmed themselves on our Dig Diary cameras.
That was a good one. That's singing for joy. My goodness me. I don't think there'll be any room for a body.
Supervising the team from Albion Archaeology is Ernie Rizzo.
And we have a Anglo-Saxon cemetery, which is something we don't usually work on. It's one of those things we tend to get excited about because they're so rare. So the fact that we've had the opportunity to work on this cemetery is fantastic.
In all, the team have uncovered 70 burials, all dating from this post-Roman period.
Because we have a decent amount of burials, we can really establish whether these people are actually immigrants who've come over or if they are people who've just taken on the culture. So much of what we know of, especially early Saxon, the transition from Roman into Saxon, whether these people were migrants or whether they were just Britons who had adapted from Roman and then assimilated into Saxon. And the lack of sight to interpret that means that something like this is really important.
It looks like it could be a spearhead. We've had a couple of burials on site that have had these spears packed in next to them.
Whether these were items that were associated with the people being buried or whether they were offerings from relatives, we're not quite sure, but there's a strong tradition of placing the bodies into the graves with belongings.
Many of these burials included grave goods, a common practice for early Anglo-Saxons. These artefacts provide tantalising clues about the lives of their owners.
There are a couple of brooches. One here, and there's another one.
Yeah. And not only are there
3 brooches. There's more and more beads coming out.
She might have been wearing a belt. We've got a small knife and a belt loop, or that could be a ring. Quite a rich and involved burial, which is nice.
So far, these artefacts are typical of Anglo-Saxon communities in the early medieval period.
So Irena's just lifted a really nice find, but we're not sure what it is.
Irena's beautiful glass object is a very unusual discovery.
Honestly, at the first sight, we thought it was pretty modern, maybe Victorian. But then after cleaning it a bit and considering it was close to a Roman coin.
Wow.
And potentially, I think this could have been a high status burial, possibly.
The team believe that this is a Roman barrel flask, perhaps used to store perfume, which could have been made hundreds of years before it was eventually placed in this grave. It's a cultural link between Rome and Britain and these early Anglo-Saxons.
Lovely.
Towards the end of the excavation, the team begin to unearth another stunning object.
Copper alloy object with what looks like gold inlay. We've got 2 brooches on either shoulder and a little amber bead here. And then this in the middle, which might be a pendant.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Something like that.
Wow.
So that's really, really cool.
The position of the brooch on the chest suggests this person was buried wearing a cloak.
Okay, Mike, are we ready to lift? Let's have a closer look at this brooch. Amazing detail.
Absolutely lovely.
The brooch is stunning, but it's what's on the back of it that could tell us even more about the people that lived here. Traces of the cloak itself, fabric buried 1,500 years ago.
There it is.
This evidence of Anglo-Saxon textiles offers experts an incredibly rare chance to learn more about the people that wore them and made them. Historian Onyeka Nubia has come to see that analysis in action.
Sometimes the investigation of a small item can give birth to a new understanding and help us to reshape our thinking of Britain and of British history.
Helping me decipher any clues in the remnants of the fabric is early medieval textile specialist Sue Harrington.
So these are the most important objects discovered at the Croft Gardens burial ground.
Yes, indeed. This is a copper alloy cruciform brooch.
Wow, it's just incredible because it's so well preserved.
Yes, it is, isn't it? But we turn this over.
Ah, so is that the textile that's the brooch was attached to?
Yes and no. If you look carefully there, you can see not the actual fibres, but you can see it in a mineralised form, which is how it preserves in contact with metal. The brooch was actually attached to this textile. You can see it almost, so it's wound round the pin.
Well, I can actually see the texture
Yeah.
of the weave,
Yeah.
even from here. And it's
Yeah.
what, 1,600 years old?
Probably about 475 AD.
Wow.
Sue's deep knowledge of these textiles means we can better understand the cultures that made and wore them in 5th and 6th century Cambridge.
What we've got here is something called a ZZ22 twill.
Okay, what's that?
ZZ means that the spin direction is in the shape of a Z. It's the sort of cloth that your jeans are made of, denim. That's a twill. Right. And if you look very closely at that, you'll see the same sort of ziggy-zaggy pattern.
So the weave of the wool, can we tell anything more about where it was woven?
In 6th, 7th century, cloth production was still ongoing in the Byzantine world, in the Eastern Empire. And possibly there was trade. Trade, we know, comes up through the Rhineland, around the North Sea. This is the sort of cloth that would have been traded around the North Sea. But my sense from this particular piece is that it's probably locally produced.
Right.
Sue thinks this quite sophisticated weave was traded among the cultures across Northern Europe including Scandinavia.
I have this one here, which I'll show you.
Astonishing that you can glean this fact from something as simple as fragments of residual fabric.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But another brooch tells us a different story.
This is from the grave of a woman who's slightly younger, 20 to 30 at age of death. This is what's known as a tabby, or a plain weave. It's essentially a thread going over one, under one, over one, under one, in both directions. But you can see from this is quite a fine piece of fabric, much finer than the twill we were looking at.
So we've seen now that there's at least 2 different types of weave. Does this mean that there are 2 types of weaving cultures? 2 different types of people doing weaving?
Well, it depends whether you're weaving for yourself or you're weaving for your community, but the amount of labour required would mean perhaps input of dedicated labour, such as slaves, to do this. I mean, there is an inference that Roman-type craft traditions continued in certain areas of the country.
So you just said something really intriguing. You said that there is a continuation of Roman tradition into the 5th century when this artifact is dated, and that's really, really important, because a lot of people say that when 410 happens, everything Roman stops.
Yeah.
And then a whole new set of culture happens.
Yeah.
And this artifact is clearly showing that that's not the case.
Whether Roman traditions continued is a possibility. Whether new traditions came in is also a possibility, and how they all mixed together is the answer.
The mixture of fabrics found in these graves reflects the blending of cultural influences on the people buried there.
This is in many ways an indication of how we've got British history wrong, because we speak about British history with a series of sentences and full stops. But it is not like that. It's a series of commas, half sentences and question marks.
Yes.
When I was looking at those grave goods with Sue, I began to understand the importance of history working with archaeology. Here we were looking at small items, textiles, little bits of material, and yet it provided a window that helped me understand the rich tapestry of this period that people call the Dark Ages. I discovered that it's not particularly dark at all.
The Romans created our earliest written sources about the Midlands, but they did far more than just leave records. Hundreds of their ruins dot the landscape, like Wroxeter, once one of the largest towns in Britain. And even our modern cities still hide Roman secrets.
Large excavations in our towns and cities give us the opportunity to see how these places that we're so familiar with have evolved through time. But sometimes it's the smallest of finds, objects which just fit in the palm of the hand, that give us the most astonishing glimpse of cultures long forgotten, as we see in our next story.
We return to Leicester and a dig that actually happened more than 4 years ago, in the heart of the city centre. Back in 2017, clearance was underway for a large new development, and a team from University of Leicester Archaeological Services had a unique opportunity to fully excavate this area. The archaeologists filmed all of their work on small handheld cameras, not realising what treasure they were about to discover. Leicester was an Iron Age settlement which became a major Roman town in the 1st century, but what the team uncovered was truly astonishing. They unearthed 2 ancient Roman streets and 2 incredibly well-preserved houses full of mosaics dating back to 250 AD. One mosaic was more than 10 metres long, and what's more, the room it was in had underfloor heating. This grand townhouse in the centre of Roman Leicester clearly belonged to one of the city's most important citizens. But as the dig progressed, It's one of the smallest discoveries found buried in the floor that stunned archaeologists.
And maybe the body here, the arm around this one, hand there and arm. They're like almost cartoon, sort of, like big hands.
In the 4 years since its discovery, painstaking conservation has restored this intricate piece of metalwork to its former glory. Gavin Speed and Nick Cooper are at the Digging for Britain tent to share what they've learned about this object and the amazing site where it was found.
So that's what Leicester would have looked like, what, in the 3rd, 4th century?
That's right, yes. This is a brand new reconstruction we've done based on all our excavation results and gives us a good view of Roman Leicester in the 3rd century. You can see the forum and the main market buildings over here and possibly the new theatre under construction in the early 3rd century. And the site itself occupies this very large townhouse and it had multiple rooms. Some of the rooms were heated.
So whoever it was that lived in that house must have been fairly wealthy to live in such an opulent townhouse right in the centre.
Yeah, we found a variety of objects within the townhouse itself and also in rubbish dumps nearby.
And this was the key find, the star find, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Can I pick it up?
Yeah, shall I?
Talk me through it.
So this is a Roman key handle. And
Oh, it's quite heavy.
underneath it is.
Yeah. Is it a bronze object?
Yes, it's cast bronze. Would have originally had an iron key coming out of it, but that's been lost. And then you're left with the decorative handle itself, which if you put it in the palm of your hand, it feels really nice. This is a really high status, a bespoke product. We've never seen anything like it before.
Really?
There's not another one like it, certainly not in Britain.
It is so sculptural. It's just full of figures that are all wrapped around each other. It's quite difficult when you first look at it, isn't it, to
Yes.
work out what's going on. But I think I've spotted 4 boys at the bottom here, almost like little cherubs. And standing on their heads is this man who seems to be fighting with a lion.
Yes, there's definitely a protective element amongst the group of boys.
So the boys are all naked. The man at the top is wearing trousers. He's got a big, thick belt on as well. And he's being mauled by this lion, which is coming around here. He's grappling with it. And this character has got long, flowing hair. He's got a beard. Who is he then?
Well, I think he's a representation of a barbarian, anybody who is not within the Roman Empire.
So somebody from beyond the bounds of the empire, somebody who is uncivilized.
Yeah.
Do you think this is representing a wild scene? Is this a barbarian fighting with a wild lion? Or are we looking at a depiction of something which might have happened in an amphitheatre?
Well, that's our take on it, that it's a depiction of damnatio ad bestias, which is the lawful killing of convicts and particularly prisoners of war in the amphitheatre by setting wild animals on them. In this case, I think we're seeing a barbarian attacked by a lion, and the children of the tribe are next on the list after the lion has dispatched this barbarian.
It's quite a gruesome subject, actually.
Absolutely.
And it's obviously had a life beyond being a key handle, because the key's long gone, and then it seems to have ended up in the ground just as a sculpture in its own right, really.
Yeah. The depiction that the idea of having the lion particularly is a symbol of security and is used as a way of warding off evil spirits, and so a key would be a fitting thing. But what appears to be is that it's buried much later on under a floor of a later phase of the building, long beyond its heyday, that perhaps it still held some power there and was symbolically placed in the floor.
You don't think it was just lost?
There's not any other rubbish in that floor layer. It's there and it was stood upright originally in the substrate, so it's not a rubbish deposit in that sense. So it's something that's been purposely been placed under a new floor.
If the key handle is evidence of the famous Roman thirst for blood, another spectacular discovery shows a far more refined side.
Almost looks like a hand sitting there on the table. Can I pick that up?
Yes.
What is it?
Well, it's a very ornate toilet set, you know, what you'd think of as a manicure set, if you like.
Ah, yes.
Usually they're very workaday. You know, you'd have a pair of tweezers, a nail cleaner, an ear scoop in there. But this is another sort of bespoke item. It's got lovely enamelling.
That is gorgeous. I can even see the colours of that. There's a stripe of green, then blue, then green again.
Yeah.
Of enamel. And this looks like a little file.
Yes, it's even got a little serrated edge there.
Yeah.
There are only 2 other complete ones. There's one from London and one from Castleford in Yorkshire. They're the only 2 complete ones. So these aren't workaday items. These are prestige bits of jewellery.
You quite often get individual tweezers, ear scoops, that kind of thing. But it's unusual to have them all assembled.
So, yes, it does make you think about who owned this. You know, if we look at any of the other jewellery that we've got, you know, we really are in the top drawer of material.
So we are looking at the upper echelons of society in Roman Leicester.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think what's absolutely fascinating is that in the centre of that town, somebody owns this key handle with an image of a barbarian being attacked by a lion, and the ancestors of these people presumably were barbarians at some point, and then they've become fully Romanised. It just looked like such an incredible dig and a real opportunity to dig right in the centre of Leicester and get down to those Roman levels. That must have been extraordinary.
It certainly was, yes. It was an amazing opportunity to excavate in such a large area as well, to really get a good understanding of the Roman past of the city.
Next, we're back at Rutland Water. In the summer of 2021, Dean Lomax and his team returned to the ancient fossil of what might be a record-breaking ichthyosaur. It's a rescue mission that will require all the experience of Dean's team to succeed.
To get involved in a dig like this, it's such a privilege to be here, and potentially it could be a career-defining moment to see what we uncover here.
9 months after the original dig had to be abandoned, the summer sun has dried out the 200-million-year-old Jurassic sediment, but the clock is still ticking on excavating this monster find.
It's at a point where there's no way that it can stay in the ground for another winter. And already a lot of the material is very, very crumbly, and some of this, if we left it any longer, it was like poof, it'll be gone. We don't want that.
With the evidence now much clearer, the team can expose the complete fossil, and it is truly enormous. Now, forensic details of what happened after this ancient animal died are becoming clearer.
Now this very scientific, accurate model, or thereabouts, this one in particular is very, very interesting for multiple reasons, but we think when this animal died, bloated and floated, it would have been picked up by scavengers, and eventually, over time, the carcass would have drifted and nosedived to the bottom of the seabed, where what we think is the skull would have landed obviously first, which is why we think the vertebral column is quite disarticulated, and then you've had other animals scavenging on it as well.
Examining the fossil carefully in situ, Dean reconstructs a brutal scene from 200 million years ago in the ocean that once covered the British Isles.
This is the left hind fin that is beautifully preserved. There's a bit of a mystery here because this is the leading edge. You see these little notches here. That should be pointing in this direction. So I'm trying to work out exactly what's going on. Potentially, it might be that some scavenger or a predator has been in here and tugging away at the fin. But then also, if you look at the vertebral column, it's fully articulated here, and then there's a sudden angular change. So potentially, what's going on here, you've had another animal tugging away, and it's pulled the entire carcass to the side and ripped off part of the hind fin. So pretty gnarly, and more ichthyosaur CSI required, I think.
The largest ichthyosaurs, like this one, were apex predators of the oceans. So whatever tore this monster's body apart would need very powerful jaws. Right next to the fin, the perpetrator left a calling card, and Dean's hunch is proved right.
We found a tooth.
Yeah, so we decided to start clearing some of this in the hope that we would find another tooth. And then there you go, we spotted one. So you can see a bit of the enamel at the top there.
Very, very cool. So we found this tooth. What this means is that we had another ichthyosaur, another large apex predator, scavenging on this portion of the tail, and it's lost a tooth in the process. It tells us more about the behavior of these animals, other ones actually feeding on this piece. It shows that not only is it scavenging, because it's another ichthyosaur tooth, it shows that these are also cannibalistic.
With every new bone exposed, the team learn more about these fantastic beasts. But the largest part of the ichthyosaur is keeping its secrets well hidden.
This is the beautiful, massive skull, but we're looking at the underside of the skull, so we're not going to see the eyes here, whereas in fact what we're seeing is parts of what we call the palatal bones in here, parts of the brain case as well, so from underneath, potentially you'd find a piece with what actually was inside the eyeball called the sclerotic ring. They would be buried underneath here, but we're unsure at the moment whether the skull is sort of pancaked flat, as if it's like Jurassic roadkill, or is it a fact that it's still three-dimensional? It's really hard to tell until we actually dig a trench around this and dig deep down by at least a foot or more and get underneath.
Only when it's back in the laboratory can the skull be analysed properly. The team dig a deep pit all around it so they can remove it as one.
We're going to have 6 or 7 beams going widthwise underneath this, and we're going to screw them all together, lift up those beams, which will lift the entire block nice and neatly, hopefully.
The wooden frame supports the skull, which is now encased in plaster of Paris and weighs in at around a ton. Even though there's help with the lift, it's a nail-biting procedure.
Right, very gently back. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic job, Nigel.
Good to see it out of the ground in one piece for now, and on the back of the trailer.
Brilliant.
Confirmed at 10.5 metres long from nose to tail, this fantastic find is officially the largest complete ichthyosaur fossil ever found in Britain. Moving 200 million years on from the age of sea monsters. Modern humans arrived in Britain some 40,000 years ago. They were Stone Age hunter-gatherers. 6,000 years ago, farmers arrived. Then came the Bronze Age. And the final prehistoric culture of Britain was the Iron Age. Our next dig takes us to the heart of the Midlands, 25 miles south of Coventry, near a farm called Blackgrounds. The site was identified as an area of interest by archaeologists working on HS2. But when they actually surveyed the area, its scale exceeded their wildest expectations.
Now, there was a Roman villa known about, which was over where that large tree is, just beyond the horses, but it was thought to be isolated in the landscape until the geophysical survey was carried out, at which point the archaeologists realised they were going to have to excavate a huge area, some 14 hectares, that's about 35 football pitches.
The sheer size of the site is extraordinary, but it could also answer some equally big questions about a period of great change in British history. Britain was inhabited by groups of Iron Age people when the Romans arrived in 43 AD. The clash between the newly arrived and existing cultures was sometimes violent, and we often find Roman forts built directly on top of older Iron Age sites. But here at Blackgrounds, there's something different. Nick Finch is project archaeologist for HS2.
Nick, what did you find then when you started looking at the geophysical surveys before you started digging?
We've got the Roman villa complex, which is this dark material in the south, which, as you can see, is quite significant. And then we've undertaken further archaeological survey to the north, which identified to be an Iron Age sort of village complex. You can see here, with all the Iron Age roundhouses and anomalies, you can see them all pocketed along, really.
Lots of circles.
Lots of circles.
It appears that this Iron Age village is abandoned soon after the Roman invasion. And just a quarter of a mile down the hill, a new settlement grows up in its place. Instead of roundhouses, there are impressive foundations and walls of stone buildings, evidence of water wells, industry, and a large road. But no military presence. It seems most likely that the people living here are still the locals, now embracing a Roman way of life. And some of the objects the dig team have found could help explain why, as molar archaeologist Matt Smith explains.
This tray holds Iron Age pottery that we've recovered from the roundhouses towards the northern end of the site, and this stuff is mostly chunky, locally made pottery full of shelly inclusions, and it's quite thick and ugly and utilitarian.
It does the job, though.
It does, yes. It's not something that you've got on your shelf for looking at. It's something that you're cooking in, storing things in. But what we see later on is the incorporation of the Roman pottery that gets introduced, like the Samian.
This much more refined pottery was found in the later Roman period settlement.
So this is made in, well, what is now France, isn't it?
It is, yes, and that just shows that we have a very high status settlement here as well.
And this is just the base of what presumably was quite a nice bowl.
Yes, and it really is wealthy individuals who can afford to have a whole sort of dinner service of Samian pottery.
Yeah.
More utilitarian stuff from the Roman period. We have this large sherd of what's probably an amphora, so that'd be a storage vessel, most likely, that would have held wine or olives or olive oil, something like that.
So they're enjoying the luxuries of the Roman Empire here?
They absolutely are, yes.
I think these changes in lifestyle are really interesting, that people are, they're aspiring to having these Roman things.
Absolutely. It's reflected in the settlement itself, and it's almost certainly the case that the Iron Age people will have aspired to upgrade their roundhouses into solid stone Roman structures. I don't think we're necessarily seeing Romans moving in. I think we're just seeing the Iron Age peoples adopting the Roman culture that is very appealing to them, really.
Yeah, suddenly a roundhouse feels a bit old-fashioned.
It does, absolutely.
Over the next few weeks, the team continue to uncover more evidence of the transition from the Iron Age into Roman Britain. Molar finds specialist Owen Humphreys has brought some of the artefacts into the Digging for Britain tent for me to look at.
Take me through some of these finds then and what they tell us about what was happening at the site. What's this one, first of all?
This is what we call a Colchester type brooch. Its distinctive feature is this little hook at the top that holds the spring in place, and then this perforation on the catch plate that tells us when it dates to. Made exclusively in Britain and widely used in southeastern England from the 1st century BC into the early Roman periods, tying to that broader local Iron Age culture. One of the fascinating things about this one is that you notice that it's green because it's copper alloy, but around the spring there's lots of red iron staining.
So that it looks rusty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that shows us that the pin at one point, which was originally copper alloy, has been replaced with one made of iron. That's a repair that shows that this object was kept and used over a long period of time, so maybe used even into the Roman period as a sort of heirloom piece.
That's just brilliant. So real kind of detective work, and you can see that this object has had a life of its own, and you can see that it's been repaired. And
absolutely. The story of the site really is that it's not looking like we're seeing a very simple transition between Roman and Iron Age. There's a lot of evidence for continuity and a really complex meshing of cultures rather than a simple conquest and replacement narrative.
It's interesting, isn't it, to think about the experience of those Iron Age people as they become part of the Roman Empire. And obviously in some places there was great resistance to that. Other places down, particularly in the southeast, it was almost welcoming the Romans in. So it's interesting once we get to the kind of middle of the country to work out what was going on there.
Absolutely. And it very much appears that at this site people were happily taking up new Roman ways of life, or aspects of Roman way of life at least. This rather lovely hairpin is a 1st or 2nd century date. Hairpins are basically unknown in Britain during the Iron Age. It's not part of how women styled their hair.
Yeah.
But you can find this style of hairpin depicted on statues of imperial women and portraits on mummies in Egypt.
So this is very much a Roman fashion arriving in Britain.
Absolutely, and it would have been very conspicuous. This type of pin relates to a style of hair where you'd have it all built up in a big sort of ball on your head with the pin sticking through it. Very retro 80s looking.
Yeah, like a beehive almost.
Exactly, and it really would have changed the way people looked.
What about these coins then, Erin? What do they tell us?
So these coins are fascinating because they go all the way through into the 4th century. So we're seeing these settlements last throughout the Roman period. These coins show that occupation at this site was continuing and perhaps even thriving at a time when the empire itself was almost limping along.
History is telling us that story of political turmoil, and perhaps you then get that expectation that that is going to play out right across the landscape of the Roman Empire. And archaeology then gives us a different view of ordinary people's lives.
Absolutely. It's that local experience that is connected to the wider imperial global story, but doesn't follow every one of its beats exactly.
So what's this first one then?
So that first one is a silver denarius of Septimius Severus, emperor originally from North Africa who actually died in Britain. The fascinating thing about that one is
It's got a little boat on it.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you look surrounding it, you can see that there are creatures and chariots. So what this represents is the Circus Maximus in Rome, flooded to stage mock naval battles.
Yes, yeah.
So even though we're in this quite large rural settlement, still a rural settlement on the province and the fringes of the empire, people are aware of these big Roman cultural events and things happening back in the capital.
Let's have a look at the other side. Is that Septimus himself that we're looking at there,
Yeah,
do you think?
the man himself with his characteristic beard.
I was going to say, he's bearded. Is that unusual for a Roman?
It's something that comes in with Hadrian, especially in the 2nd, 3rd centuries. People start adopting that bearded style.
Oh, so the Romans are picking up barbaric customs as well as the Iron Age
Absolutely.
people picking up Roman customs. I like it. Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen.
But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, all across the country, our archaeologists dig, dive, and explore their way down.
Oh my God! Some of the best stuff you're ever going to see.
Oh wow.
Here we go, arrowhead.
Searching for fresh discoveries.
Hypercaust!
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
It's been there for 5,500 years.
And unearthing fascinating objects.
Fantastic decoration.
Any musket balls yet, Aaron?
Wow, look at that.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw that is the epic story of our islands.
And I'm down.
This year I visit digs in some extraordinary locations and solve mysteries using cutting-edge tools.
Oh, this is wonderful.
I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
So you can see how that gives you a really unique signature.
That's right. Excellent.
So they were using food as a type of bribery.
Who dig deeper to answer the questions raised by the finds.
That's how he got away with it.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best discoveries into our tent.
Yeah, it's a cracking find.
For up-close analysis.
So it's completely unique in Britain. That's wonderful. Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time we take a look at the most fascinating digs and discoveries taking place in the east of the country.
I returned to the site of one of the most extraordinary Roman finds of recent decades.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Where an entire villa complex is being revealed.
Each of these layers is another phase of occupation, isn't it?
In Hull, a Tudor fort has been built from the rubble of once magnificent monasteries.
So what is it then?
This is the central part of a spiral staircase.
Yes.
And we see hunting weapons mysteriously abandoned on an ancient island in Yorkshire 11,000 years ago.
And then you start wondering why, don't you? Wondering if this is just purely functional, whether there's, I hate to use the R word, but a bit of ritual associated with this.
A sunny climate and fertile soil has helped parts of England's east become known as Britain's breadbasket. The Romans recognised this advantage. They also brought new farming ideas as they made themselves at home in those early centuries. We journey back to the site of a Roman farm and villa in a wheat field near the town of Stamford in Rutland.
I was here in this field almost exactly a year ago, witnessing what has to be one of the most astonishing, beautiful and unexpected archaeological finds that I've seen in my lifetime.
And this year the big discoveries just keep on coming. It all began in 2020 when a farmer's son spotted a clear rectangular crop mark in his dad's wheat field. Jim Irvin and his family investigated and soon found they'd uncovered hundreds of small coloured tiles known as tesserae.
There's another panel! There's another panel!
University of Leicester Archaeological Services were quickly called in.
I'm just tickling it and I'm getting more mosaic underneath.
They soon realised they had something very special on their hands, a huge and exquisite Roman mosaic. And in 2021,
my heart is racing.
I was lucky enough to help uncover it.
Oh, Jim, I'm quite emotional seeing this. It's just amazing.
But the mosaic and the large building it was inside were just the tip of the iceberg. Surveys showed a number of other substantial structures spread across the field, hidden just beneath the surface.
Now I'm back and this is looking completely different from last year, and I can't wait to see what they've uncovered.
John Thomas is back overseeing the investigation of this villa complex that extends over 13 acres.
John, I couldn't wait to come back this year to find out how things were progressing. So what are you doing?
So if you imagine the mosaic is the sort of cherry on the top of the cake, we've come to investigate the cake of the site this time. And we wanted to look at a range of different building types that we could see to try and get an idea of the chronology of the site, who lived here when, and how did it develop over time.
Yeah, because presumably there's the potential that actually it spans a good few centuries.
Yeah, we think so. I mean, we're looking really to try and get a better insight into how it all developed and the history of the site.
Last year's spectacular mosaic has now been reburied for preservation.
And it's still there under our feet.
It's still there, yes.
Yeah.
But in the same villa in an adjacent room, dig leader Jen Browning has another mosaic to show me.
And if we peel this back as far as we can...
Oh, wow, look at that.
Oh,
there's a little bunny.
They're everywhere.
Yeah,
on
well,
the
the Romans brought them, didn't they? So he must feel at home. Off he goes.
Back to safety.
That is beautiful. What a lovely design.
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's all these intersecting circles in blue and terracotta. And they're creating these kind of lozenge shapes.
But the more you look at it, the more you see. I mean, you can see almost like sort of star shapes in there or flower shapes.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, really.
The team believe this high-status villa, with its beautiful mosaics, was built late in the 4th century, an addition to a large complex made up of around a dozen individual buildings. Whoever lived here was clearly very rich. The wider villa complex is providing clues about the source of that wealth. These buildings sat at the centre of a large working farm.
Outside this pit, away to the right, we have this gully. And what we're finding here and in the other features we're excavating is that many of them are filled with burnt organic remains. Lots of botanical remains from cereal crops that are either being processed or damaged in storage.
If the villa is the final cherry on the top, the building that's being uncovered at the bottom of the field is turning out to be a layer cake of clues, taking us back to earlier centuries.
So it stretches all the way from the wall that you can see there, right the way under our feet, right the way back to just before the fencing.
Yeah.
So this is all within the building.
That's massive. What are we looking at? 20, 30 metres?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
Here, there are clear traces of how the owners of this farm changed and improved their buildings over time.
This is so complicated.
Yes.
Can we get down and have a look
Hugely
at it?
complicated.
There's
So
so
this is
much
like
going on.
So look down there.
That's a post hole.
That is a post hole. Because what's happened is they've built the wall around it.
Oh, OK, so the timber's still
yeah.
in situ. So this massive big post is still in situ, and then this is all being built around it, and it becomes part of the wall. It's
That's
in the
it.
wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it start off life, do you think, as a timber building, which then later gets these stone walls kind of built into the skeleton of that timber building?
I think that's very much the case. And that's why it's so interesting to have the contrast between what we're getting at this end of the building and what we see at the other end of the building, which is so much simpler, presumably for agricultural purposes.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something that develops quite richly, really, as time goes on.
And someone spotted its residential potential. Could this be Britain's earliest barn conversion?
So is this a villa in its own right?
This is like the residential side.
Yeah.
So what we...
Hypercaust?
Yes.
Oh,
and it's not just one hypercaust.
Beautiful.
There's two.
The upgrades to this building include this hypercaust underfloor heating system, which circulates hot air from a furnace. It's the signature of a comfortable Roman lifestyle.
I mean, what's really important about this room is how hot it is. And we know that it's really hot because these are box flue. So these are, you know, they're taking the hot air up the wall. They're hidden behind the plaster.
Oh my God.
And we've actually got
and they're
remains
actually
in situ.
Yes. Because you find pieces of this on Roman villa sites. But
to
here
see
you
them
can
in
actually
situ.
so you can see the shape of the box.
Yes. Yes. And
so this is a channel in the wall with hot air that's been circulating around there, and then it's being sucked up these flues.
Yes.
And it's heating the walls as well then, isn't it?
That's right, and they're really close together.
Yeah.
So it's very warm in here.
The quality of this hypercaust suggests someone here was investing heavily in creature comforts, building a small but perfectly formed mini Roman spa.
So you come through the really hot caldarum, the sauna, into
the tepid area,
slightly cooler but still warm room, and then you come and jump into this cool bath at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, all squeezed into this very small space.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
The timber post holes, along with some dateable coins, suggest this was one of the earlier buildings within the villa complex.
Will the knees work? Yes, they will.
This building would undergo repeated refurbishments over perhaps 2 centuries, one on top of another.
This is beautiful. You've got to come down here and have a look at this. This is absolutely gorgeous because each of these layers is another phase of occupation, isn't it?
Yes.
There's another floor level. And you can just see them. I mean, how many do you think you've got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 at least. There's probably more.
The phases of development across the site, with a range of domestic and agricultural buildings, suggest at least 300 years of active use. The villa complex became more lavish over time, and this country estate would have teemed with dozens of people, slaves, servants, and the owners. The personal items emerging from the ground give us a glimpse of the people who lived here. as Historic England's find specialist, Rachel Cubitt, is showing me.
We have had 2 or 3 of these lovely bone hairpins. So they're sort of similar in having a globular head and then a shaped shaft. Mine tapers from the head to the tip.
Yeah.
The fact that yours has a swelling shaft means it's slightly later in date. That's mid-2nd century onwards, whereas these are slightly earlier.
Yeah.
We know that Roman women wore their hair in updos and they put pins in to secure them. So, I mean, it makes sense that there would be women on this site, but we've got evidence for them here in their hair fixings. So that's
I'm kind of wishing I'd done that with my hair today, actually. It's blowing all over the place, yeah. So that's actually giving you some clues as to the earliest phases of this site?
Yes.
Yeah. What's in
So
that
our
box?
star object really is in here. This is a pair of dividers. So I guess you need to think about a pair of compasses that you might have had at school, but instead of having a pencil and a point, we've got 2 points here.
Yeah. For measuring.
For measuring, for marking out. Quite solid and beautifully carved and moulded. We've got ring and dot design and various incised lines. And then this lovely hinge at the top.
Yeah. That's beautiful. As you passed it over to me, I suddenly caught sight of this design. It's very much a functional object, but with this fantastic decoration.
Yeah, and in incredible condition.
What is really interesting about coming and seeing this excavation as it happens is that you are getting an idea of how this place evolves over time. I think when you visit known villa sites, you're often presented with just a snapshot of that villa at a particular time in a particular century. Here what we're getting is the way that all these buildings, there's a whole load of buildings in this field, the way that they changed through time.
The final phases of archaeology show the villa in decline. Walls collapsing, buildings abandoned. The Roman army was pulled out of Britain just decades after the Trojan War mosaic was laid out, and the villa fell into disrepair. Later occupiers lit fires on top of the mosaic, devastating whole sections. Before it was reburied, the mosaic was photographically recorded, but the discoloration obscured the design, so a specialist archaeological illustrator was called in.
So this is the body of Hector that we've got coming up here.
David Neal's task is to reconstruct the mosaic in its original colours. He showed me a copy of his painting back in 2021, when it was still a work in progress.
So how many tesserae are represented in this part of the mosaic that's already been uncovered?
60,000 at a guess.
Yeah.
I suspect we may have to paint yet another 30 to 40,000 tesserae.
Oh my goodness, and you are painting them individually?
Yes.
Over a career spanning more than 60 years, David has become the leading expert on British mosaics as he paints each one tessera by tessera. And now he's nearly finished, David's brought along his painting of the Trojan War mosaic.
Oh, that's wonderful, David. Wow, look at that.
If you remember, you've got Hector fighting Achilles.
Yeah.
Then Priam pleading for mercy.
And this is the little bit of the mosaic
That's the bit that you excavated. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And Hector, very dead, very white.
But I just think it's magical.
David has had to paint around 100,000 tesserae to create this image.
So have you got a few finishing touches to push to this?
Yes, I've got to change the colour of these 2 legs to white.
Oh, how are you going to do that without losing the detail of the tesserae?
Well, I've got a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
And there's the brush that you're going to use.
What? I'm not going to touch this.
No, but we're going to get you to do a little sketch, well, not a sketch, sort of painting some tesserae.
Okay.
Whilst David makes his corrections, I seize the chance to acquire some tips on illustrating mosaics from the master.
So, why is this better or necessary alongside the photographic record?
The whole point about drawing the mosaic is that by emphasising the lines, it's clearer than a photograph.
Yeah.
Problem, of course, has been trying to illustrate Achilles up here, because it was so burnt. So I've removed the burning. I've tried to establish what the colours were originally. So it's in that respect, it's a recreation.
Yeah.
I don't attempt to restore the missing areas.
No.
But the very process of observation is part of the archaeological process.
Yeah.
It is slow and requires immense patience. But the colour and composition of this Roman masterpiece are brought back to life through David's technical expertise. It's a truly specialist skill, and in our digital age, at risk of becoming a lost art.
So, David, have you got apprentices lined up doing this work?
Alas, I have to report, I don't have any youngsters coming along to do this work, and it's a great shame. How's it going?
It's going all right, but I've got a large hole here, so I'm having to fill it in with uneven tesserae.
Oh, that's coming along nicely.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I'll pass on the baton to you.
I think I'd have to have a very good audiobook to listen to. I don't think my tesserae are very square.
I dreamt I flew with the saints last night. I know them all by wing size, and up there it just doesn't count for naught whether you're clever or wise.
As we travel further back in time, long before the Romans arrived, the traces of our ancestors in the landscape become more scarce. Each rare glimpse is very precious. This is especially true of the time before farming, when people were still nomadic and lived by hunting and gathering. But as archaeologists are finding at our next dig, just outside Scarborough in East Yorkshire, life in the Mesolithic was about more than just simple survival.
Traditionally, people think about animals in terms of resources, calories, food. I'm really interested in thinking about what other things animals may have been to humans in the past.
Nick Overton is one of several leading archaeologists who've brought their students to dig on this patch of slightly elevated land.
If you were standing here 11,000 years ago, we would actually be standing on an island in the middle of an ancient lake.
The island was no bigger than a couple of football pitches and surrounded by a vast lake. Over thousands of years, the trees and plants growing in these wet conditions would rot down to form a thick layer of peat.
Peat retains the moisture, so we are getting wood and animal bone, which looks like it's as fresh as the day it went in. The animal bone have really fine cut marks that we can see, which are great traces of human activity. So the preservation is absolutely incredible.
Examples of this amazing preservation have been captured on the team's dig diary.
Here we have a hazelnut. It fell off a tree about 11,000 years ago. Perfectly preserved.
These discoveries are all coming from a narrow strip at the island's edge, where the water would have been just half a metre deep.
The shoreline is very much a Goldilocks scenario. It's the right place to find potentially intense places of activity that gives us a really good snapshot into what people are doing.
This is a pretty large flint flake. It's quite exceptional to get these large pieces on Mesolithic sites, I think. I've been traveling for a bit and I didn't find anything. I was like, okay, it's 3 o'clock, I have to go home. And I was like, 5 more minutes. And I hit this. I was like, okay, last find of the day. That's good, that's good.
A flint like this could have been brought to the island to butcher hunted animals.
We are finding the remains of elk, auroch, wild boar, red deer.
But it's the evidence the team aren't finding that is surprising.
It looks like not all of the animal body is present. So we're getting vertebra, we're getting ribs, we're getting scapula, so the shoulder blades, and then there's a real gap So the limbs, almost entirely missing, and then we get down to the feet and they're present again. They are killing animals, they are processing them in some way, and then parts of the animal bodies are being brought to this site and intentionally deposited in this water. It's also a really discrete group of bones. It's spreading just across our trench and about 4 or 5 metres wide. So it feels like it's not just a random scatter of odd pieces of bone. It feels like it's a really intentional act of deposition.
Adding to the mystery is the discovery of exceptionally rare hunting tools placed alongside the animal remains. Dig co-leader Amy Gray-Jones carefully lifts one of them from the peat.
So I've just come across this group of artefacts and I can see we've got a barbed antler point here.
The barbs carved into this piece of antler make it into a lethal spear point, which would have stuck in the flesh of an animal or fish.
To have a complete barb point is really special. So we'll just see if we can release that so that we can lift it out of the way. But
each day, new discoveries add to the picture of these hunters surviving in the landscape, but also hint at layers of meaning beyond the purely functional.
They are foraging, they are hunting and gathering and fishing, but they also have really rich and complex lives where they are interacting with the world around them. We're really hopeful that we can start to get a grasp on when people are coming to this site, how often they're using the site, and also what they're doing. It's very exciting. I think we're still pinching ourselves a bit.
Nick and his dig co-director Barry Taylor have brought some of their finds and their ideas about the site to the Digging for Britain tent.
Ah, fantastic. So these are all finds that have come out from the edge of the island?
That's right, yeah.
What do they tell us about what people were using the island for?
I think we often think about hunter-gatherers being very sort of mobile, maybe living on the edge of starvation, sort of really struggling to get by. But I don't think that's the case. These are people that are happy and confident in the landscape they live in. They know what they're doing. They know how to live and to live well in that landscape.
Absolutely. And we don't have to think about them necessarily doing large-scale kind of movements over hundreds of miles, as you might think with nomadic groups sometimes, because the area around the lake would have been full of, resources, plant and animal resources.
Yeah. So let's have a look at these finds. I mean, this is an antler, so presumably this isn't about food.
That's right. So you can see stone tools have been used to carve grooves through the side of the antler. And so they'd lever that off, and so you'd end up with this blank of really sort of firm material.
Yeah.
And they're using that to produce these.
They are absolutely beautiful.
These are barbed antler projectile points. They'd have been hafted on a spear or an arrow. They'd be used for hunting, fishing, also for fowling, maybe taking out smaller mammals as well. So they're quite versatile. Yeah, these ones have got this sort of serrated edge. We find a lot of them are broken as well. And you do wonder as well if some of them are being broken deliberately, because they are quite tough. So they're disassembling these things.
Yeah.
They're depositing the antler component with the material that's being made from and with the remains of the animals.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that's a very useful thing. You're going to be upset about losing that, and you're not just going to leave it somewhere.
No.
So it does look like there might be some intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's this? Because I think I can see some pattern on that.
This was our star find. So that's the tang. So that's the bit that goes into the arrow shaft.
Right, OK, so that's the bottom end of the projectile point. Yeah.
And then, both sides, a series of chevrons running down the tang, really.
Yeah.
No, it's a beautiful piece. It's the only one we've got from the site that's decorated.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, it's the only example from Britain as well.
Is it?
So it's a cracking find.
So it's completely unique in Britain. That's wonderful. So this is a fantastically well-preserved and articulated spine. Was it actually articulated in situ?
It was almost exactly like this. A few of them were slightly apart, but that's almost certainly because it's gone into water.
Yeah.
And so as it's broken down, it's just sort of moved apart slightly, which tells us that they had soft tissue attached to them. So it wasn't long after this animal died and was butchered that then this part was then placed into about ½ a metre of water. If you look along this edge, so all of these...
missing.
Let me show you one of these.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If you
so there should be large levers sticking out at the side of the vertebrae here. There should be transverse processes.
And every single one they're missing, so
Yeah.
we know for certain that this is related to human activity at the
Yes.
site.
So they're not bringing the entire animal to the island, or they haven't killed the entire animal on the island and they're butchering it locally. They're bringing parts of it.
That's exactly what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah. And then you start wondering why, don't you? And wondering if this is just purely functional, whether there's, I hate to use the R word, but a bit of ritual associated with this.
You could certainly imagine that this is evidence of people in the Mesolithic having rules about how to deal with particular things that they kill and hunt and use.
This is probably one of a handful of sites in Britain of this date with this amount of material in this condition. It's so rare and so important just to find sites like this, because the amount of detail you can start getting into to reconstructing people's lives is it's almost unparalleled. It's absolutely fantastic.
It's brilliant, and it's giving us this insight into these hunter-gatherers living in Britain thousands of years before farming arrives in this country.
For centuries, the seas around Britain have been crucial to trade and transport links with the continent. Along the eastern coastline, estuaries and rivers have been gateways for commerce, but also vulnerable to attack. Our next dig takes us to the Humber estuary as it widens to meet the North Sea, Kingston upon Hull. The city's maritime tradition stretches back over 800 years, including that period of seismic change, the Tudor era.
This aquarium, the Deep, stands here fortress-like on the junction between the River Hull flowing out to meet the Humber estuary, and then the North Sea is over there. Well, back in the 16th century, the banks of the estuary would have been right back here. And on the west bank, we would have had the medieval city of Kingston upon Hull. But this east bank is just muddy, undeveloped, and it's a soft underbelly. It makes the city intensely vulnerable. Henry VIII recognises that and puts in a line of defences along this east bank, terminating in a fort at this southern end, and that fort is being excavated right now.
The South Blockhouse was shaped like a cloverleaf and housed 46 cannons. It was part of a chain of defences on the east bank of the River Hull. This beautiful plan made in the 1600s shows how these defences played a crucial role in securing the river port, encouraging the investment and trade that made Hull prosperous. The South Blockhouse was demolished in the 1800s to make way for industrial dockyards, so finding any Tudor remains is a challenge, as archaeologist Danny explains.
Where are we in the building? I find it really confusing. This is still the Tudor building here, is it?
Yeah, kind of. We are over here in the entranceway.
Yeah.
What we're trying to work out over here, though, is exactly where that gatehouse was, because, as you can see, they've just made a right mess of it. We've got this massive culvert comes all the way through, where we think might be kind of the gate bit.
And is that a later feature then, that culvert? Yeah.
Simple plans provide hints of what might lie here, and this excavation is the first time that this much of the blockhouse's original footprint has been uncovered. Pete Connolly of Humber Field Archaeology wants to find out as much as he can about how it was built and what life was like here.
So the foundations from where we're standing,
Yeah.
the base of them are about 3 metres below our feet.
Wow.
4 metres wide,
Yeah.
2 metres deep.
So you've got 2 metres?
Yeah,
of
2 metres.
2 metres solid?
And this is just one.
Yeah.
There's another 2.
Yeah, yeah.
They're all connected with a massive brick wall.
These new style forts were squat structures with curved walls, heavily reinforced to withstand attack by projectiles or siege weapons. But the debris used to infill these huge brick walls is not just any old rubble.
So what is it then? I mean, this has got a kind of cylindrical portion to it.
This is the central part of a spiral staircase.
Yes. Okay, so that's the shaft that goes up in the middle.
Yep.
And then this is the beginning of a step.
Yeah.
And then you have the next one.
Yep.
Going round
Yeah.
and round and round. So these aren't really small finds, are they? They're quite large finds.
No,
Where do they come from?
These have been recovered from religious monasteries or houses as they're being taken apart as part of that dissolution of the monasteries. And then, waste not, want not, the builders of the blockhouse
Yeah.
are taking this material and then infilling it into the building itself.
And it really just places us in that time, doesn't it? Because the dissolution is starting in 36.
Yep.
And then this is built in the 40s?
40s, yeah.
1540s?
Yeah, yeah.
The demolition of those monasteries and priories and friaries, and now, very symbolically, it is just hardcore.
That recycled stone underpinned a fort bristling with firepower, each cannon with its own fortified position. Peter's now identified evidence of these distinctive features.
This is an original Tudor gun position, is it?
Yeah, this is the original Tudor gun position.
So there would have been a cannon right there where you're standing?
So we're in this gun position here.
Isn't that fantastic?
A complete cannon was found here in the 1990s and is now in a museum mounted on a reproduction wooden carriage. Almost no wood has been found at the dig, but a student archaeologist has just made an exciting discovery.
Oh, that is cool.
Look at it, what's coming right here.
Oh, he's loving it, look. Oh, love it.
This wood could be part of a Tudor gun carriage, but a later stone wall has been built right over it, so it will be recorded and left in situ. However, Pete has successfully uncovered the place where he thinks the gun crews cooked and kept warm.
This looks like burning.
Yeah, it is. You've got a fireplace. Oh, the classic Tudor herringbone pattern fireplace.
Yeah.
You're not seeing this type of structure anywhere else in the building.
Yeah.
And if you've got maybe 6 members of staff, you don't need to heat the rest of the building, but you want to give them some comfort. But
what's this wall then?
At some point, this separating wall goes in to separate this space from this space. So they're making the fireplace smaller, but it's still functioning.
It's really interesting, isn't it? That you're gradually taking it apart and working out how it was put together over time.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a great site, isn't it? Such gorgeous archaeology. Finds which take us to the details of the soldiers' lives.
And by piecing together the archaeology that Pete's team have uncovered, we can add it to the plans and drawings and create a much clearer picture of how impressive the South Blockhouse was, standing guard over Kingston upon Hull.
The Neolithic is when farming arrives in Britain. It was a completely new way of life, replacing the hunter-gatherer existence of earlier ancestors. But those early farmers were still using stone tools. They weren't yet making anything out of metal. That's not to say their tools were crude, far from it. The cutting-edge technology of the time was based on this, flint. It forms in sedimentary rock, it's extremely hard, and it fractures like glass to create a cutting edge that's as sharp as any metal knife.
We see just how versatile this stone could be at our next dig in Harlexton, 30 miles south of Lincoln. The rather splendid Harlexton Manor is an international college, and Emily Stamiti is running a summer dig for overseas students. crop marks suggest this field contains prehistoric features.
Out of this trench, we've managed to find hundreds of pieces of worked flint that actually show evidence of reworking, so real, actual tools that people would have been handling and using. Flint is not naturally occurring in this landscape, so we don't understand how we're acquiring so much flint from this feature.
Each piece of flint could be a waste flake or part of a tool or weapon, but the students have only a few days to find something extra special.
It's like a race against the clock. Dig, sieve, and some of the best finds are coming out of those sieves.
Ooh, oh nice. Look at this. So here's a piece of a flint. I think you can tell it's worked. I seem to see some percussion ripples going down this way.
So far, over 600 flints have been catalogued by find supervisor Kim Jones.
This edge has been deliberately broken. You've got a cutting edge there that's still quite sharp, and the rounded ended into a scraper. Best way to think of this is a multi-tool. You can cut, scrape, and scoop, all in one tool.
So we found this like biface here. We got arrowhead. We were just trying to follow this trench here, and so we were shoveling up some of the loose dirt, and just happened to be poking out right there. That's pretty cool, actually.
This barbed and tanged arrowhead is from the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age.
First one of these I ever found, I was 6 years old in my back garden. I'm now 54, I've been an archaeologist for over 30 years. This is only the second one I've held like this. So forget gold coins. That is actually a better find. Most arrowheads are something pretty primitive. Once you go to this, barbed tang, fine flaking, this is overkill, this is bling. You don't need this for everyday use. They've worked them specially.
This site shows just how skilled those flint knappers were, able to shape this stone with great precision and to make a variety of different tools. Stuart Pryor is going back to school to sharpen up his knapping knowledge and see how this technology developed over time.
I'm fascinated to see what it takes to make a usable flint tool. So I've come to meet James Dilley.
Hey, Stuart. How are you doing?
An absolute authority on flint knapping skills and their history. I see we're surrounded by the tools and the flint of your trade, James.
Yeah, it's a skill that anyone can really do because it's not about strength. And the way that I'm going to get into it is to use another very much Stone Age tool, just a beach pebble. Okay. No, nothing too refined even at this stage. And this is usually when people are expecting a really big strike onto the flint, but it's not, because you can hit it like so.
And you've got that's brilliant.
With a fairly light strike. I've almost just used the weight of the stone.
So I've experimented with using flint tools in the past, but I've never made the tools themselves.
Good. Tilt the flint downwards a bit more, that's it.
This is hard. Very hard.
Good, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
A bit more of that. Excellent. Oh, that sounded good. That real crisp crack. That's a great one. So, this would be a good blank, a good flake to turn into something like a scraper. So with a smaller, slightly rougher pebble, all you really need to do is just tilt it down again in your hand or even against your leg and just start taking some very small flakes off.
So working on this, it's like the tools, the trade, for absolutely everybody. It goes right through society, from the youngest kids all the way to the grandparents.
And it would have been integral to their daily lives, from waking up in the morning and preparing some food, using the stone tools then, or going out for a day's work with a stone axe to clear some forest.
The flint flake I made easily skinned locally culled deer meat. I cannot believe how useful this tool is and how quickly we've managed to produce something that was workable. And you can see, look at the thinness of that. It's just so impressive. It's amazing how quickly I can make an effective stone tool using just a pebble and flint core. But relying on Neolithic tools to take these flakes to the bling level takes a lot of patience and skill. So James, you're recreating that barbed and tanged arrowhead from Harloxton. This arrowhead fast forwards us to the transition between late Neolithic and early Bronze Age. In this period, copper was used in tools, allowing creation of finer details in flint work.
Arrowheads were made like this back in the early Neolithic when they were using antler pressure flakers. And an antler by itself would be good up until about this stage. But to really turn this into a recognisable barbed and tanged arrowhead, I need to start flaking 2 notches from the base.
So that tool gives you more control?
I could make the antler very, very thin to fit into those notches, but it just doesn't have the same strength. Okay. So the antler tool will just keep breaking at the end of it. So I've got some flexibility with copper, as well as it being a flexible metal and soft as well. And I need that slight softness so that as I push into the edge, that the hard flint still bites into the copper. So as I'm pushing those notches steadily across the back, from the base of the arrowhead, you can see they're getting longer and longer.
I've seen them in museums, but actually to see one made before your eyes is quite startling. So James today made this incredible wafer-thin Bronze Age arrowhead. I'd never seen how tang and barbed arrowheads are made, and the skill and the technology was just sensational. However, as expert as his flint knapping is, the jury is still out on whether James would have cut it as a Bronze Age hunter. Hey!
When you see an object on display in a museum, it can seem as though we know everything there is to know about it. But sometimes a crucial detail may have been missed, or perhaps we know more about the period now than we did at the time of its discovery. Or it may be that we can revisit it and unlock new information using modern scientific techniques. Now, this is exactly what happens in our next story, and that process of rediscovery started with a keen eye.
For this investigation, we return to the city of Hull. Tucked away in the historic Old Town is the Hull and East Riding Museum of Archaeology. Inside is one of the best collections of Iron Age artefacts outside London. So no surprise then that Iron Age expert Mel Giles knows it well.
One object that's always caught my eye is this beautiful long brooch, which is more colourful than any brooch I've seen from the Iron Age.
Found in 1900 in East Yorkshire, this unusual brooch has been on display since the 1940s, but has never been examined in detail, leaving many questions unanswered.
This brooch has packed within it so much history about the Iron Age and about what it might have meant to people and the connections it embodies.
Mel asked the British Museum's top Iron Age brooch specialist to undertake an in-depth scientific examination. And the results are coming through, so Kat Jarman is investigating.
I've come here to meet Sophie Adams, who's been looking at this unique brooch in extraordinary detail for the first time in nearly a century, to find out exactly what modern methods can reveal about it. Sophie, hi.
Okay.
Ah, wow, it's stunning. But what's so special about this particular brooch?
The thing that really stands out for everybody is the decoration along the bow of it.
Yeah. So you've got lots of different materials, haven't you?
Exactly. And if we start with slightly lower resolution, but still a close example we can have here, and we have a look at the objects.
This low magnification allows us to begin to see detail in the decoration, but is it possible to identify what materials these Iron Age craftspeople used?
So, Kat, can you see on the screen there the surface of the object?
The first decoration we look at was thought to be malachite, a green stone commonly used in the Iron Age. You can see that, so it's almost like it's got a different colour underneath, and then it's got patchy bits of the green over the top, which look quite a lot like the corrosion on the other side, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's that bright bluish green really stands out for you there. We have, over the top of the material, these copper corrosion products, just as you might get where bronze corrodes itself. So that's masked the material underneath it.
A higher magnification confirms even more clearly that the copper oxide corrosion has obscured the identity of the original decoration.
So it's a shell that's of kind of pinky colour and gone green from the corrosion, but it's a particular type of shell, often known as a tusk shell or Antalis vulgaris, which is a very pointy shell that occurs in southwest Britain and western Mediterranean.
Oh, okay.
And they've cut it down and shaped it and put it into the cell here.
It's our first breakthrough. The materials in this brooch, found buried in a Yorkshire grave, were far from local. Sophie was able to investigate a second type of decoration on the brooch in even greater detail.
In the middle we have these beads, and we examined with the scanning electron microscope. And this can give you really good detail of the topography of the material and the composition of it. So this is going even closer, getting right in there.
Now Sophie's images show the beads magnified several thousand times. Just looks like gravel, doesn't it? Or something like that.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But as we zoom in, the texture that's showing up here.
It's not much to look at, but this surface microtexture is almost like a material fingerprint. Sophie cross-checks this unique marker against other known materials in a database.
We've been able to identify that they're Corallian rubrum.
Oh, okay.
Which you may be more familiar with as just red or pink coral, which is coming from the Mediterranean.
And that is just such an exciting result, because actually the difference between having coral from the Mediterranean or just some stone that you might be able to find locally, that's actually huge, isn't it? And that's, you wouldn't know that 100 years ago because you didn't have those methods available to you.
Yeah, so it's like we've re-excavated this brooch, you know, we're treating it as it's a new find.
Yeah.
Putting the science that we have available at it.
Yeah.
And we can find out new things.
Sophie's findings show how Iron Age Britons had extensive trade networks. That's so exciting. Because then the question, of course, is which part of this travelled? You know, was it just the materials? Was it a craftsperson travelling with it? There's so many things, isn't there, that you can get from that.
Well, we call this really a microcosm of the Iron Age.
It's wonderful. It just shows you the power of every little object to tell something so much bigger about the entire period, really, I think.
In an archaeological dig, we see features and finds being revealed, but this is really just the start, and the process of analysis and interpretation can take years.
Especially when the site is not only huge, but also perhaps the most complete time capsule of prehistoric life ever found in Britain. This extraordinary dig took place in the fenlands of Cambridgeshire, at Must Farm, just 3 miles from Peterborough. 3,000 years ago, a thriving village was destroyed in a catastrophic fire. The roundhouses collapsed and sank into the marshy fens, where their timbers and their contents were perfectly preserved in the sediment.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's beyond any sort of dream of what you could do within archaeology.
The discovery of this community frozen in a moment of disaster earned the Must Farm site the nickname of Britain's Pompeii. Archaeologists suddenly had an astonishingly clear window into domestic life in Britain during the Bronze Age. The way that people arranged and divided up their living space inside roundhouses has never been well understood, so it was remarkable to find distinct kitchen areas in each house that were also very well equipped.
So we've got a bowl here. There's a wooden platter starting to come up here. There's a big storage vessel just there. There's more bowls just over here.
These pots and bowls, some still containing food, were potentially the most revealing finds at Must Farm. They were also very fragile. Now, Andrew Broodnell and Chris Wakefield from the Cambridge Archaeological Unit are ready to share their latest findings from this incredible site.
Thank you so much for bringing all these pots in, and we've got a wonderful range of pots here, and I know just some of them are incredibly fragile, like this one here, which you've pieced back together just with tape, but we can see the structure of it. How many potsherds were you dealing with, and how long did it take you to know which pieces belong to which pots?
Almost 2,500 sherds of pottery.
Yeah.
So out of those 2,500 sherds, coming together and spending time in a room produced 128 individual vessels.
And that process took about 7 days. There was 3 of us, you know, doing full days of refitting, sitting on the floor.
Yeah.
It's a bit like having a jigsaw puzzle, apart from you don't have all of the pieces,
Yeah.
and you don't even have the box to work from in terms of the actual picture. So it's a really difficult process, but it's so rewarding in terms of the information that we can actually draw from that.
I presume this was quite a challenge to piece together.
This pot was actually one of the vessels that was broken before the fire. So this actually, we found fragments of this pot inside 2 different structures. So what we've done here is to stick all those bits back together, and we did this so that and kind of create a sort of scattergun image of where these different sherds came from across the site and how they refit between the 2 buildings. It's also really important to get the complete profile of the vessel so that we can draw it and we can calculate the volume of the pot.
So we're looking at a pot that has been stuck together using masking tape as part of the process of analysis, not as a way of displaying it.
It is a form of analysis to work out where those things came from.
Are you going to take it apart again then?
Yes.
You are? After all that work?
Yeah.
Not all the ceramics were broken. Some pots were complete and even contained the leftovers of a meal.
You can see the sort of carbonised remains within the pot. Sometimes you can see grains, fragments of leaves and things like that.
Since then, these burnt food remains have been tested in the lab.
That food crust that was in it, that has been analysed, and it seemed to have contained almost like a porridge-like mixture of partially processed grain, but also there was some organic residue analysis that also showed that it had ruminant fats from animals, particularly with either sheep, goat or red deer.
So you've got a kind of meat and grain stew
Meat and grain stew in that one,
Yeah.
And in other ones we find milk products, dairy products and honey as well. And also what you never get is meat and milk together, and you never get fish and milk together either. I mean, it's, you know, so there's certain things they didn't like putting together, and there's certain things that they did.
Looking at this one here, it's really beautiful, and I look at that and just really admire the craft that's gone into it, and also marvel at the fact that this wasn't made on a wheel.
The level of accomplishment by the potters at Must Farm is extraordinary. You can, if I just do, we can show.
You got it?
Yeah, I've got it. When this vessel was being built, when it began to dry, kind of a leather hard stage, as we called it, that it was probably scraped out to thin the walls of the pot to make this a fine, thin-walled vessel. And if we turn over the vessel, this would have been the original the original colour of the pot, the dark black lustrous finish.
That's not the burning?
No, no, that was the original colour. This side was actually protected, probably fell into soft mud or silts or was caught in some of the debris. And this bit was exposed to the heat of the conflagration. The refiring has caused that to crack in the heat.
That's just lovely. Nearly 3,000 years old.
Yes.
What is fantastic about this site is that everything here is suggestive that it's the everyday objects that people would have had day in, day out.
And it feels very familiar. If you think you've just got a few of the bigger ones, for storing foods, presumably mostly, and then you've got lots of smaller ones which are presumably for, you know, everyday use and for eating.
I mean, if you went and looked in your cupboard at home today, you'd have something similar. You know, you have cereal bowls, you have pasta bowls, you have, you know, this real different range of material, and we're seeing the same thing, but in a settlement that existed in 850 BC, 3,000 years ago.
I think what really, really comes through to me as well is that it's only at this point, years later, where actually the story comes together, where we're able to, you know, look at these wonderful pots and not just admire them, but actually understand them and know what they were for.
Come and search, for we who search and